Hey guys, what's up? This is going to be a 20 or 30 minute Patreon preview. So if you like what you're seeing, feel free to scan that QR code in the bottom right hand corner, become a member at any level, and watch behind the scenes with us, be a part of the show. We'll pull up your chats, whatever. There's a lot of other perks there as well. So just go ahead, go check out the website. We work pretty hard on it. But yeah, we'll see you in like, 45 seconds. Here we go.
We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely immense.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some Nephilim shit.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they're controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us modern day slaves. And everybody's just walking around, heading the clouds, and wanna wake up to a dead in the grave. But then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days. Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government released.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven. That is TopLobsta, the father of disinformation. And today we are joined once again by Bryan of Demon Erasers. I'm very excited for this episode. For those of you who watched the last one, you know where the conversation left off, and you know what we anticipate is going to be talked about today. But Bryan, for those of the audience who may not remember that episode or didn't see it, can you let them know where they can find you and what it is you focus on? Oh, no, we can't hear him.
Oh, he's muted. We had technical...
My mic is fixed. All right.
There we go. We're better now. Everything's okay.
There's a lot of noise going on, by the way. The next door neighbors are doing construction. There was all kinds of technical issues. So who knows what will happen today. But
Very exciting.
Yeah, so now you can find me at demonerasers.com or on social media platform. It's at Demon Erasers on X or on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. And other platforms too, but I just haven't gotten there fully yet. Oh, yeah, and that's my movie Ancient Angels that I created with my buddy JT, and you can find that. And that should be on Amazon Prime. It might be in Angel Studios. They're looking at it, so I might be on Angel Studios platform. I don't even know yet, but we'll see how that goes.
We gotta pick your brain on how to do, like, how do you get your documentaries? How do you do them? How do you get them on Amazon Prime and all that stuff? Because something that I'm interested in. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I can help you. There's a lot of gatekeepers that try to stop that, but it took me a while to figure it out, and now I've got the connects, yo. So
This actually works out really well. What's today? Today is Friday, and then I believe it's this coming week we're going to be talking to JT on Tuesday. We'll be talking about the steel manning of the little season. So sure to upset a lot of people because that just seems to be what we do. And the little season is one of those topics. But today is not going to be... Well, actually, you know what? I'm not even going to say that this isn't going to upset people, because I think that when you start to delve into the realm of, like, the biblical precedent for various types of cryptids, either you love it or you hate it, which is very much... We don't really talk about things that aren't polarizing, it seems. So prepare yourself, Bryan, because I'm sure that the audience is going to be... opinionated one way or the other. But last time you were on the show, we got into this discussion towards the tail end of it, and we said that we were going to be talking... Top, do you remember who it was we talked to right after Bryan? There was some discussion that we had, and we thought it was going to play really well with this. We were going to open this door and start exploring one cryptid. Man, I can't even remember what it was or what we ended up talking about. But when we brought this up to you, your eyes lit up. And you got really excited, Bryan, because I guess this is something that you explore in your own pursuits. Yes. I think it was Dogman. So I don't know necessarily how to open up this conversation, because it's a strange one. But it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there is within the Bible a plethora of examples of entities that start to kind of overlap with what we consider today to be cryptids. Is that correct?
Absolutely. But they kind of code it in ways that you're not quite attuned to recognizing, like the word beast in the Bible. A lot of people think the word beast means animal. but it actually doesn't necessarily mean animal. In fact, a lot of times the word beast implies some type of hybridization, animal-human mixture. So similar to like, the mark of the beast. It's like, why isn't it called the mark of the devil or the mark of Satan or the mark of the evil one? No, it's called the mark of the beast. There's a reason for that, because it is referring to a hybridization of genetic perversion, if you will. And there's a whole lot more to understanding that I would step and offend a lot of people, I'm sure, getting into the topics of it. No, I mean, like, but this is just the beginning. Which, by the way, side note, I feel like I don't know if I didn't mention this the last time. I pray for people. I'm an exorcist. I cast out demons, and do these kind of things, and I see healings and all kinds of crazy stuff. But I got into it because I studied a lot of things in the occult, and the Lord like slapped me real hard and woke me up from it and said, "Yo, hey, you're not to be doing this." And then thankfully it gave me some understanding, and he gave me a lot of wisdom. And I studied a lot of ancient books and ancient cultures and all this stuff. And when you really dig into it, you realize a lot of those things on the Egyptian hieroglyphic walls, those aren't metaphorical stuff. Like, those are real things. Like, I don't know, people don't understand. Like, you can look up, like, we mummified baboons, but if you look at Egyptian hieroglyphics, they had baboons worshiping alongside with the humans. And you're like, well, wait a second. Are those baboons or are those something else? Because you see the baboon people carrying food, worshiping in Egyptian hieroglyphics, and we've found mummified baboons. And you're like, well, why do they mummify them? They mummified a lot of animals and stuff, but they mummified them in a way that was kind of significant. And when you look at the skeletons of these supposed baboons that they mummified, they don't look like baboons at all. They have rounder dome skulls. They look more human-esque, if you will. And it's a very fascinating subject to look into, because a lot of times they're like, oh, we don't have any archaeological evidence of these things ever existing. Oh, yeah, we do. They just delete it, or they destroy it, or they say, oh, we found a skeletal remains of a horse and the skeletal remains of a human. These are unrelated things. They didn't go together. It just so happens they position them to be together to look like that when they buried them. And because like chimerism genetically has a difference. So like there's a difference between chimeras and hybrids. And so like, even if you were to find these skeletal remains of creatures like this, you wouldn't be able to tell that they were together at one point at all because of the chimera effect. So the chimera effect basically is like, if you were to take a blue jay and a red robin and make them into one creature, which you can do genetically, will create the top half of the bird would be blue and the bottom half would be red. Okay, that's a chimera. Okay, and that's different than a hybrid. A hybrid is like when you take a donkey and a horse and you breed them together and you get a mule. And if you were to take their genetic code, it will tell you it's a portion donkey, a portion mule, or a portion donkey and horse. The genetic code of that would reveal that it was a hybrid. But if you were to take the tissue of the previous creature, the bird, where you chimerized it, and you saw half of it being a bird and half of it being a blue jay and a red robin, if you were to test the genetic code of the blue part, any part of the blue bird, it would tell you it's 100% blue jay. And the bottom part would tell you it's 100% red robin. So like there is a difference when it comes in the genetic component of how these type of hybrid creatures and these type of things exist, even in our archaeological finds. So we have found things where there has been like sort of like human skulls and stuff joined onto the bodies of other animals and mixtures of things. And we assumed that, oh, these didn't go together like this. We put them there as some sort of ritualistic burial. And it's like, okay, so the archaeological evidence has tried to write these creatures off, but no, they have existed. They've existed in history. We know that chimeras is a thing. So it's baffling that we don't even consider the fact that these things that we have found are chimeric in nature. But they also the Smithsonian obviously hides a lot of the evidence. But yeah, that's just a basis. I could keep going, man.
I got some questions about it. So what's more likely in nature? So there's two questions. What's more likely in nature, chimerism or hybrids, like having something be a hybrid?
Well, hybrids would be more natural occurring. Chimeras have to be created. You can't. The chimeras, don't usually get born chimeric in nature. It's a rare situation where a chimera happens. There is chimerism, and you can't see it in people. Have you ever seen people where they have two tonal skin differences? That's a form of chimerism.
Two different color eyes.
Yeah, that's a form of chimerism. And so like that kind of thing happens, but it's not as common to occur. Most of the time, hybridization is what seems to be more of a sort of thing that people might see. I mean, it both of them happen, I guess you could say, naturally. But chimerism, to the extent where it's like half a creature, half another, usually is like a forced genetic, like designed, intentionally created thing. That's what they were doing in Egypt, by the way.
So, Bryan, when you say that a forced genetic sort of combination, this starts to open up this conversation for whether or not they had advanced knowledge of how to do these sorts of things. I mean, when you think of genetic manipulation, you think of that as a modern day school of thought that only modern man is capable of, and even still something that you would speculate we haven't had mastered. Although a lot of people would suspect that behind closed doors in the right facilities under, some sort of shadow organization, that they are doing these things to a high level, but it makes it feel like this is a modern day issue. And of course, when we think about the ancient Egyptians or any other ancient culture, the way modern day archaeology has set up the narrative for us, we don't imagine that they would have this sort of technology. But what do you suspect that technology, and this is only open to speculation, but what form would that have taken? Is this something that the ancient Egyptians, would they have had labs? I mean, how would they even have gone about doing this thing? I know it's been obfuscated and it's been hidden from history, so we can only speculate, but I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
I can't even give, honestly, like I can't even give a speculative answer to that because the reality is, like, it could have been that maybe they did have some kind of laboratory component that got so decimated in some kind of reset that we just don't know. Like, all that was left was the rock component of whatever they were using. Maybe they had some biological lab component. There's the speculation. Maybe it was a spiritual way that they were doing it. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they were spiritually somehow found a way to manipulate genes through some type of spiritual means. I don't know. I mean, the speculation to how that would be possible, how they were doing it, is like endless. But irrelevant of whether it's speculative or not, we have evidence of it being done, and we have drawings of it being done. We have bones of it being done. We have dismissed bones, obviously, but we have these stuff that we have found and things related to this that we know. And and this is just coming from I like to approach it kind of from a scientific perspective. In this regard, like before we jump into the biblical perspective, because we can jump into the writings in the biblical perspective, and then we have a plethora of evidence that this has been done. We have an enormous plethora of evidence. In fact, that we'll get into that too, because Josephus. Oh my gosh, there's so much. It's so exciting. Okay, sorry, I'm getting too excited. I gotta jump ahead.
Can I say then, Bryan, on that topic though, it certainly lends itself to the speculation that they had a greater knowledge of gene splicing and things like that, because of the way that they preserved their dead. They seem to have gone through astronomical lengths to preserve the dead, even for lengths of time that would suggest it's for future generations, right? We often look to the ancient Egyptians and their mummification process, and even isolating the organs in various jars and things like that as an attempt to, there was a spiritual rhyme or reason behind what they were doing, but you can't ignore the fact that we do have instances where we find mummies where it seems that there would be recoverable DNA. These things were so well preserved. So that begs the question, is that an accident, or is it a happy byproduct of the practices spiritual that they had, or was there a deeper intention behind that sort of thing? And I tend to myself believe that there's a deeper intention because of the Hillary Clinton emails and her looking for the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It seems that they expect to be able to find genetic material. And so I don't know what knowledge the ancient Egyptians had of the future and what it would be like, but it does seem to me that you could make a strong argument they had a deeper knowledge of DNA preservation, and that was something that played into their worldview, certainly when it came to preparing their dead.
Yeah, and the preservation of this kind of tissue and this kind of stuff. I mean, like, it's definitely it like leans towards a scientific kind of aspect. And you mentioned the burial chamber thing that was found in the WikiLeaks articles, and that is a very fascinating subject in and of itself, because it's like, what was she talking about? She like,
It's one of my favorite. I love that. It's one of my favorite things.
bro, it's so fascinating when you realize, like, dude, that was a government email. Like, somebody was literally writing in our government asking about where's the location of the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh. This is
So
like
cool.
Our government just had a UFO meeting, an entire UFO meeting where they're like,
Oh,
these
yeah.
things are from outer space. We need to know what they are. It's like, okay, I guess we're at that point.
Yeah, they've at least admitted that that they are real and completely, and they're not human necessarily.
What do you? I know that we're here and we're set out to talk about one thing, and I don't know how long we have today. I know I'm good on time, but we would be remiss if we didn't talk about this UAP disclosure or conference that they had. It's the second one ever that has been held in a congressional meeting or congressional hearing, and a lot of people who are in the conspiracy community, certainly like the kind of the biblical conspiracy community, have been speculating, and it's not a reach at all. It's not even really a prediction. They've been telling us for a while that disclosure is coming in some way, shape, or form. And now that we've reached this sort of, pivotal moment in history where Donald Trump is getting into office, and all of a sudden, upon his securing the election, they suddenly spring this on us. And I haven't even talked to Top really to get his thoughts on it. Let's play this. I'd like to hear it.
I have no thoughts. It is what it is. Here we go.
I have no thoughts.
Over the decades that we have certain adversaries like China, like Russia, that technologically speaking are not as advanced as us, that they lack some of the lethality that we have, and that we've seen that they've gone after our technologies and in some cases succeeded, in particular with missile technology. And so again, my concern, whether this technology emanates from us or otherworldly, that we know that we possess it. And where's the accountability? Where are the stopgaps? What are the guarantees that if this were to fall in enemy hands, that it isn't immediately weaponized against us? And I'll say this, it is clear from my experience and what I've seen that there is something out there. The question is it ours? Is it someone else's? Or is it otherworldly? And Madam Chairman,
These guys
So-
have just lost the plot. I love it. I love how like everybody's scrambling. They're like, something's happening. It's been happening for since the beginning of time, but really it's been happening since, I don't know, for like 100 years.
Well, I mean, look, it really kicked off in a big cultural conversation when Rogan had the Tic Tac UFO guy on his show. That was probably 2019, 2017, 2000, something around there. And
David
and
Fraser.
then yeah,
Fraser,
and
was
then it
that?
kind of got bigger with the Bob Lazar thing, and it got a little bit bigger with the Pentagon admitting that they had recovered off-world craft. And I think that might have been particularly what happened sometime after 2020. But either way, yeah, you're right. They've been kind of pumping us with this idea, and I think it's at the very least, I could ask you, Bryan, what do you suspect this UFO phenomenon is? Because I do think there's a tremendous amount of overlap between what we're seeing there and the idea of cryptids and things like that, because the government seems to have the government seems to have its hand in both of these things. What do you think if we do get a large scale disclosure? What are the nature of these things in your opinion?
Yeah, so they're absolutely connected, and I think the UAP thing and the alien thing, they are cryptids essentially, and so they fit in the same category in my opinion because they are the same thing. They're a form of chimerism, hybridism, genetic makeup, blended with some level of spirituality, in my opinion, from the stuff that I've learned. And it's interesting about the Bob Lazar thing. I know the bus driver that drove the bus. This is a crazy story. I'll just share this story with you because I ended up getting in contact with the guy that did the Bob Lazar documentary, and so I got his phone number. I ended up and talked with him. Jeremy
Corbell, yeah.
Yes. So I know him now, and so I've talked with him a bit about some of the stuff because I ended up getting. So I run a printing shop, and I print decals and stickers and all kinds of stuff. And I had playing in the background. I had a new employee, and I was telling him about aliens and stuff or whatever. I had it playing in the background, and a guy came into my shop that was getting stickers for his airplanes, and I put airplane stickers on all the time.
This show is brought to you by the Van Man Company. If you're like me, then you're constantly trying to avoid products that contain harmful chemicals, especially when it comes to skincare and hygiene. From fluoride in the toothpaste to aluminum in the deodorants, avoiding these products can become a full-time job. That's why we're excited to team up with the Van Man Company to bring our listeners a solution. The Van Man Company offers a range of incredible products, like their Miracle Tooth Powder, made from natural ingredients like peppermint oil, ancient sea salt, and baking soda. And the best part? It's 100% fluoride-free. They even offer an aloe mouth rinse. Or how about their tallow and zinc sunscreen, made from ingredients like organic olive oil, organic beeswax, and 100% grass-fed and grass-finished beef tallow. And there's more. With products like tallow and honey soap, coconut and magnesium deodorant, and peppermint beeswax lip balm, you can't go wrong. From head to toe, the Van Man has you covered. Listeners of this show can use promo code Nephilim at checkout to receive 10% their entire order at vanman.shop, or you can click on the link in the description below. That's promo code Nephilim, Nephilim, for 10% off your entire order at vanman.shop. From head to toe, the Van Man has you covered.
And I had this plan, and because I was talking about it, I think I had talked about it when he came up with the airplane, and then it like sparked me. I was like, oh, you don't believe in UFOs? So I played it. The guy ended up coming in while it was playing, and the guy was like listening to this playing in the background while I was doing his stickers for his plane, right? And he was like, you believe this junk? And I was like, well, I don't know, man. It's not really junk. And he was like, I think it's just a dude. He's not saying that aliens are real. He's just saying that he worked at Area 51. Bob Lazar just said he worked at Area 51. That's pretty much all he was saying. He said he saw unique ships that did stuff. He's like, huh. He's like, I drove the buses that took the people to Area 51, and I ain't never seen anything. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like,
What about
wait a
odds of
second.
that?
I was like, I know. I was like, you did not just say this to me. I'm like, you drove the. He's like, I owned Arizona Charter. He's like, I was the owner, because now he owns an airplane company. So this guy's like really wealthy dude. He's like, I owned Arizona Charter. We would drive the people out to the bus, and then like he said, and then our contract, we outfitted the buses with black sheets down the middle and rows, and we made everyone wear headphones. He starts giving me all this detail, bro. Like, he's like, everyone had to wear headphones. He said there was S1, 2, 3, and 4. So so Bob Lazar said he worked at S4. There was S1, 2, 3, and 4. And so the guy's telling me this, right? And he's like telling me, he's like, bro, this is what we did. And he had a non-disclosure that ended just recently that he couldn't talk for 50 something years. Okay.
Wow.
And so he starts telling me, and he's like, yeah. And he said, I put headphones on everybody. He said they could not talk with one another. He goes, but I lost the contract because somebody on my bus started talking to one of the other people. And then they switched to airplanes, which is why I got into the airplane industry and started, running airplanes, because I had this government contract with the buses and I was getting paid pretty well. But I lost the contract. And he was like, but no one talked on my bus. And I'm like, the Bob Lazar was like paused. And I'm like, that's the guy that talked on your bus, like on the television right now. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, bro, look, and I like fast forward to the part where he just mentions in the documentary. He's like, yeah, we got on a bus, and then he sees he's like, that is the guy that talked on my bus.
Oh my God.
I was like, you don't know who Bob Lazar is? He's like, no, I've never heard of him. I'm like,
it was literally my job not to know who that guy was.
Dude, I know, literally. And he was like, his job was, he told me so much fascinating stuff. He said he's never seen a UFO. He said he didn't believe in UFOs. He said he thought it was all really weird. And he said he knows where Area 51 is. He knows exactly the location. He knows there's S1, 2, 3, and 4. He's like, his company drove the bus, but he did it originally to make sure, because so you know about it all. And he says it's really weird. It's like, it looks like a sand roof, but when you drive up to it, it's really low, and then it like dips under, and you can see the entrance. He like knew he like knew everything about it.
That's
And
wild.
so-
I remember listening to that episode. I was driving to Las Vegas. So I was in the desert, driving across the deserts of Nevada, listening to that episode. And that was, the beginning. I remember even passing by. Nevada has novelty stores that they have an alien lean to them.
Oh, yeah.
And I just remember feeling back then like it was the beginning of a much larger conversation. I would have never imagined that it would have taken as long. Because whenever that episode came out, it really was like 2017, 2018 or something like that. Or it might have been 2019. 2019 is when that episode happened. And I would have never guessed that 5 years later we'd still be waiting for it. It really felt like it was about to happen then. But
Yeah, it did.
I can't help but, this isn't profound. They're going to deceive us. They're going to lie about the nature of these things. And honestly, I've been saying this on my other show, Timeline Cleanse, but people like us in this space where we're very comfortable speaking about these topics are going to soon probably be looked to for answers, because a lot of the more respectable content creators aren't touching the topic.
Yeah,
and I think it's because they imagine it's going to go away or it's going to be a nothing burger, whatever the case may be. I feel as though we're really on the cusp of something much larger being exposed. And in fact, it's dangerous because if you haven't done your research, then the government controls the narrative. And that is
funny.
where
a lot of the respectable content creators, the bigger ones that I know and I'm able to talk to, I ask them, I probe all the time because they're like, "Oh, you're a crazy person." I'm like, "Yes, correct." But what do you think about this that's going on here? Like, this congressional meeting about UAPs or UFOs, and they're like, "Oh, dude, it's Project Bluebeam. They're gonna lie to us about it." And I was like, that's like the older conspiracy. I was like, that's what I thought a couple of years ago. So they're like one or two conspiracies behind what we are on. And I'm like, I didn't even tell them about what I think it is. I'm just like, oh, maybe we'll see what happens. So they're like, they're covering it respectably, but yeah.
I thought that Bluebeam was going to play much more of an element, and it's still not off the table, but after you get enough testimony from folks, it becomes incredibly difficult to dismiss this as strictly a, how would you say this? A visual experience, like a hallucinogenic experience or something like that, because there's an element of real physicality.
Well, Bluebeam's in your hand, guys. Like, this is Bluebeam. Project Bluebeam is AI. Like, people don't realize, like, they don't need to project so much fake stuff. You know what they do? They make so much AI look so real that even if you do see footage of something that is supernatural, you're gonna go, "Oh yeah, that's fake." That's Project Bluebeam. Like people, like, I think Bluebeam's misunderstood. The idea that we can project something into the sky, and that's laughable to me. Like, I owned a projection company for a while, so I did projection mapping and stuff, and I worked with all kinds of stuff like that. So, like, I mean, they're sure, but like, it's not going to be as believable to make something. What's more believable is controlling the narrative that if you actually do see some footage like that, and then they just tell you it's fake, like, seems more plausible the other way around to me.
And to that point, Brian, I don't think that has to be the end-all, be-all narrative that they're running. I think they can run several narratives at once, so you don't know if you're coming or going. I think that's going to be sort of this real age of confusion that we're heading. I mean, we're in it right now, too, especially we have this ability to transfer information so rapidly and communicate with one another, but I don't think that there's been a harder time in history to pin down the truth.
Yeah.
Right now, it's very difficult to find it. It's falling through your fingers. Beam is the blue light coming from screens. There you go, Arcane Arsenals. So when it comes to this topic of UFOs, I mean, once again, I know we were supposed to go in a bunch of different places, but I kind of want to get your thoughts as well on where Tucker Carlson is falling lately. Because not only is Tucker Carlson, he's also going on this narrative about there's a spiritual aspect to the UFOs. And I go, yes. And he even mentions the Nephilim. And I think he mentions it in a conversation with Roseanne Barr. I could be wrong. They might have mentioned it separately. And you go, and I want to go, yes. But as soon as that happens, I go, wait a second. Am I wrong? Am I looking at the wrong? And then all of a sudden he comes out recently and he's like, I have had a demonic attack in my sleep. And I'm like, yes, but like I don't know what to do with this because I feel very skeptical of Tucker Carlson. And what are your thoughts on Tucker Carlson's nighttime demonic encounter?
Oh, dude, I love Tucker Carlson. I really want to talk to him. Actually, I feel like I need to have a conversation with the guy because I think you see the change in him. Honestly, when he got fired from Fox, like I mean, like the total, you could see the change. It was like something happened to him, like that started to bend his perspective of reality, and it was like his eyes were opening, and then it was like suddenly he couldn't deny things, and then it's like when he talked about the demonic experience, it was like, that makes a whole lot of sense. This is where he started going. Because when you have something like that, you have to rationalize it. Like you can't not, when you deal with demonic things, like I deal with them all the time at this point. So it's just like, it seems almost normal to me to some degree. But like, dude, if I gave you any one of the experiences I deal with on a regular basis, most people would be like, okay, I believe in God. Okay, I believe in God. Like that was insane. Like, but this is just like, to a certain point, you get, almost numb to it. But the reality is like, it's, you know what I think it is? I think the Lord actually allows people, once you already made your choice to choose to serve him, God will like open the floodgates to what is spiritual to you. And it's like, it's because God will now allow those things to exist around you or be able to be a witness to them, because it's no longer going to affect your choice to choose. Like my choice to choose to believe in God isn't going to be affected based off me seeing somebody float off the ground. Like that's not going to affect me, but it would affect somebody else. So God's not going to allow that experience to even happen. Do you know what I mean? It's for people that haven't made, because if they saw it, then they're going to be like, well, of course God's real. I saw somebody float off the ground. Like, that's not like a thing that a normal person's going to experience necessarily, because it will affect their perspective of God and their perspective of truth. And God doesn't want people to like come to him because they're just like, oh, demons are real. Now I believe God's real. Like, like that's not how God wants. He wants you to come to him because you chose to know him. You chose to love him. You chose to be his friend, and so spiritual encounters is such a fascinating subject when you get into it. But I know that whatever was going on with Tucker Carlson, like when you get there's some level of awareness that Tucker Carlson had already been privy to that even allowed such an experience to happen to him. Okay, like, because he says he had got mauled by a demonic spirit, by an entity, by a demon,
Right.
something invisible. And so that happens all the time. But demons have a reach, and it's fascinating that he didn't go to the other extent and be like, oh, well, it was an alien abduction experience. No, he knew it was a demon.
Right.
Like,
Well, that's the thing with Tucker Carlson is like I am wary of the more influential kind of commentary contributors in the space, and so I realize that I'm under no obligation to. It doesn't matter if I believe in Tucker Carlson's story. It really doesn't. I already believe in Jesus Christ, and I already have my ideas about how, and it informs it to a degree, but I'm not required to believe him. I want to believe him, but it is it's just a built-in cautionary measure that I have when it comes to these more influential people. But I can't contest any of the things that he's been saying. He wore a bracelet one time, and the bracelet threw me off. It was like a Kabbalah bracelet. I was like, I don't like that bracelet, dude. And ever since then, I've been kind of looking at him through squinted eyes. But I don't have an issue with anything he's saying. Top, we haven't really talked about it, you and I. What do you make of Tucker Carlson's demonic encounter?
I think we mentioned it on the show previously. I wonder if it's a demonic encounter or if it's somebody that he's wronged, because he came out of that Fox News world, and he kind of like ruffled a lot of feathers. He definitely rubbed people the wrong way that were telling him what to do. And then when you give them a middle finger and you continue to be successful, you tie up with X, you do better numbers than them. It's an open invite to whatever kind of attacks that they're ready to throw at you, whether that be trying to put you in jail or whatever it is. So, I mean, it's not beyond the realm of somebody visiting him, astral projecting. I don't know if that's even possible to do that and manifest physically and scratch somebody to maybe sick something on him. Maybe that is some kind of witchcraft going on. Maybe it is a demon, not just a person that's astral projecting, but definitely something in the spiritual realm, because he's talking about this stuff. I don't think he should be talking about this stuff. Let let me rephrase that. It's not that I don't think he should. I don't think he's supposed to. He's not. They have told him. They gave him a platform and they said, "This is what you say." And he really stretched those lines a lot, even on Fox News. He was one of the people that was kind of pushing the boundaries of what is allowable, to tell the truth. And now he's kind of completely out of the box. So, yeah, I don't know where to put him. It could all be an op, right? But I think conspiracy theorists already think everything is an op. So I'm just watching.
We're the recipients of that right now. Everybody thinks that we're an op because we found some modicum of success, sort of. And that's enough to paint us as
the little skull that I drew there. I think it's a dope skull.
Now they're like, well, Skull and Bones and the prophetic skull of Geronimo, and I'm like, it's meant to convey a dead Nephilim, which we're not fans. But also,
Nephilim Death Squad.
Whatever, go off.
Well, I have a little demon with little X's over his eyes, so
Yeah, it doesn't. But it is what it is. I mean, I get it. We've been lied to so much that. Even
honestly,
me.
Hold on. I will say this: if they watch this show, fuck you. I don't. I'm sorry. I just don't have time for it. Like, I was going back and forth, and I was like, listen, I'm not a part of the occult. Somebody that we know is a Mason, and they're like, denounce him right now. And I said, kick rocks. Like, don't ever tell me what to do. The more you tell me what to do, the more I won't do it. But I don't care about these people. They're of no consequence. It's just kind of an annoyance. It's a little bit of an annoyance when I'm putting a lot of effort to put forth a message and do something that I think is meaningful. And look at this. We actually ended the Rumble stream at 33 minutes. So it's just like, go ahead.
Illuminati confirmed.
It's not looking good for us right now.
But it speaks to our having been lied to so much that this is another thing. You don't know if you're coming or going, right? It's like they do so many things at once that you don't know who to trust. And really, it's like you should trust in Jesus Christ and strengthen your relationship with God. And I guess it really doesn't matter if you believe Tucker Carlson or if you believe that we're coming from a place that's good. You know what I mean? It's just none of that is of consequence if your aim is set on God.
And let me just say this. I'm very harsh with these people. Again, we'll get back to the episode at hand. But I'm very harsh with these people. I will use uncouth language because this is what you are asking. When you come as a child, as you're a grown man, you come to me as like a child saying these things. What you want me to do is slap you on the head and tell you to beat it. This is the only response to deal with somebody who is acting in this manner. So it's exactly what I'll give you. And then they'll scream, oh my goodness. It's like, no, this is what you told me to do. And I gave it to you. And that's it. That's all I'll say about the matter. Wash my hands of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably for the best. I've been trying to be patient lately, and so I've had some time, and I've been engaging in Discord with them. But so when it comes to this bigger conversation, right, with Tucker Carlson, he's having demonic attacks. We're on the cusp of some sort of UAP, UFO. I don't even like that they rebranded it, by the way. UFO disclosure. We had alluded to only moments ago, Brian, that there is a crossover, more than likely the same exact thing, when it comes to cryptids. One of the things that makes me feel like that is a potent truth is that a lot of the time when it comes to these cryptid sightings, they are localized around military bases. This is something that comes up a lot if you absorb testimony from individuals who have had these experiences. Lo and behold, if you do a little digging on the area in which it happened, more often than not, it's on a military base. So this has given birth to the theory that, once again, like the days of old, right, that it should be like the days of Noah, there are these programs, chimeric programs possibly, where some have speculated that these entities are on military bases because they are made there and then they are guarding the location. Other people speculate that there is a portal aspect and that really there's a portal there, which is why the military base is there in the first place, because it's a location of interest to them, and that the entities are a byproduct of the portals. But it becomes very difficult in this conversation to make sense of these cryptids, whether they're upright walking dogmen, Bigfoot. I remember now, by the way, the conversation that we were going to have, Top, after we spoke to Brian last, was with Justin Brown of the Promethean Lens podcast. He was talking about the idea that Esau would have been a descendant
Oh, yes.
of what we identify now as Bigfoot.
Right.
And I think that's an important avenue to explore, because as people who believe in Jesus Christ, and we have this Bible, and it's a tool that we use to make sense of the world around us, how then do these other entities, if maybe there is a precedent for Esau being something of a descendant, or an ancestor rather, of Bigfoot, then how might we make sense of dogmen or jaguar people or things of that nature, which are a lot of the stories that you get coming out of these cryptid testimony from individuals. So maybe we can start there with that conversation. What do you think, Bryan?
Yeah, okay, so there's multiple aspects to the cryptid subject. Okay, so let's just break it down so that way people understand. We've got biological and components to cryptids. And I can say they're either hybrids or they're either chimeras or a mixture of hybrid chimera. Okay, and so that's basically the basis of what they are. And we can talk about the spiritual aspect. They're either interdimensional beings, which are demons, or physical entities or things from another realm, which Bigfoot has a tendency to transmute reality and disappear and reappear, and these kind of things, as reports of him have been. So we've got the spiritual aspect, which again I think alludes to the fact that they're all demons. But some people like to say that maybe they're not, maybe they're interdimensional beings, something else. But you've got this aspect, and then we've got the historical sort of aspect, and the in writings related aspect, and this is very fascinating, relating to Esau, for example. And then we've got, let's say, the alien sort of current perspective understandings, and there's multiple linking parts of this. Okay, so those are like the main parts. I'm just off the wing, I'm trying to like break this into subjects. Okay, so we've got like current, historical, physical, spiritual, and physical, like genetics. Okay, so we kind of discussed some of these things, but the writing aspect, the historical aspect, I think is like one of the most fascinating sort of subjects to get into in regards to these. Okay, so there is a place biblically that I'm going to discuss that talks about cryptids existing. Okay, so first we know what cryptids are: genetic hybrid monster things, right? So and I've kind of mentioned they're chimeric in nature. Now, a chimera in the old time chimera definitions, like they knew that a chimera was something. If you Google what is a chimera, like the creature, it has like a snake for a tail and like a lion body and wings, but it's really just multiple parts of different creatures blended together in one bodily form. Okay, and so that's basically the aspect. And when it comes to the alien aspect, I guess we'll get to the alien aspect first. Or at the end, but let's talk about the historical component. I'm going to read you guys something. This is Josephus's writings, okay? If you guys don't know this book, Josephus, every one of these green tabs I have marked here, I've gone through this whole book, several books twice, but these are all referring to giants, okay? Every one of these little green tabs in his writings. All these blue tabs are referring to very fascinating stuff, and there's some chimeric related content in this. Now, Josephus is the reason why we believe the biblical account of the Bible that we have today, because he was a Jewish historian, okay, and he just wrote the things that were happening. He wasn't like writing, he didn't actually believe in Jesus, but he wrote about Jesus. Like, so it was not like him writing with this biased opinion, essentially. So this is the reason Josephus's writings is part of the reason why we know that the Bible is valid. Okay, and then they also have the Dead Sea Scrolls. And so that is, again, another reason why we've determined that the biblical accounts are valid by these historical kind of things. Here is one line stanza component from his thing. I guess you call it a verse. Okay, I'm just going to read you some parts of it. All right, this is the against Epion. This is a section he's talking about. While our way of divine worship did as much exceed that which was their laws appointed, as does the nature of God exceed that of brute beasts. For so far they all agree through the whole country, he's talking about the country of Egypt, to esteem such animals as gods, although they differ from one another in particular worship, they in each case pay to them. I know this is kind of like broken apart, trying to understand what's happening here. But if you read the whole section, he's basically just, it's like a sub note that he's mentioning that Egypt esteems these things that they call brute beasts as gods. And you're like, well, what's he talking about? Like, that's a really weird like thing. And he's relating it to the worship of the Jewish God, essentially.
What is he? Brute beasts is the language
He calls
that he
them
used?
brute beasts. And repeatedly over and over, he calls them brute beasts. Now, here's another section. I'm going to repeat this. This part is just even more like fascinating because we want to talk about historical evidence of these hybridized creatures existing. Okay, this is a historical document. Dude's writing about some perspective that he has. All right, in Egypt. All right, now for Egyptians, perhaps they are the only nation that have had this extraordinary privilege to have never served any of those monarchs who subdued Asia and Europe. And this is on account as they pretended that the gods fled into their country and saved themselves by being changed into the shapes of wild beasts. Okay? Whereas these Egyptians are the very people that appear to have never in all past ages had one day of freedom. No, not so much as from their own lords. For I will not reproach them with relating to the manner how the Persians used them, and this not once only, but many times when they had their cities laid waste and demolished their temples and cut the throats of those animals whom they esteemed to be gods. Now, have you seen the movie 300?
Yeah, love it.
Do you remember the part where the Persians came in and there was this big monster, weird, big fat guy?
Yep, remember that, yep.
Okay, that's actually happened. The Persians hired the Egyptians, okay, in historical account. They hired the Egyptians for their brute beasts, okay? Like, and those brute beasts weren't like just like normal humans. These were creatures that Egyptians were making. These are some type of non-human-esque beings that they were creating, and that the Persians or whatever hired these people, the Egyptians, to use. They used them for a bunch of different things. And so they brought them in, and they were like, they were monsters. They weren't even, and if you see, there's a part in that 300 movie where you see a goat-headed man playing a flute.
Yeah.
And for a split second, and then it's alluding to the fact that these are the people that they were hiring from Egypt, like minotaurs, centaurs. These creatures were what Egypt was making. Okay, now here's another
Can I just say, Brian, before you go on, one of the first lines that you read from that was really interesting because it sounded like, I'm paraphrasing, but like Egypt wasn't subjected to these monarchies that were taking over other countries in Europe and such, because they more or less linked on the idea that they were worshiping these brute beasts as gods already. It almost sounds like the Egyptians were one of the last cultures that had chimeric cryptids as, because if you look back into the Sumerian texts and things like that, they had bird-headed, gods and things like that, which is interesting because I believe that they worship the fallen, and obviously there are breeds or classifications of angels that have eagle faces and things of that nature. But it seems like the Egyptians were maybe the last ones to be worshiping chimeric creatures. Is that more or less what that was saying?
Yeah, that's basically what it was saying, and to some degree that they were worshiping him. Now wait till you hear this line. This line's just kind of the dead set in stone, okay? Yet if all men had followed in the manner of the Egyptians, the world would have certainly been made desolate as to mankind, but instead had been filled full of the wildest sorts of brute beasts, which because they suppose them to be gods. That's a line that the dude wrote.
That's pretty
that Josephus
straightforward.
wrote. He's telling you in Egypt, and there's another line he says, who is there that does not know that among Egyptians there's all sorts of sickness exist? Okay, and so the whole world knew that in Egypt there was a large amount of sickness.
Interesting.
Yeah, there was like a bunch of beings or people that were sick. Let me see if I can find this one.
But by the way, that is pretty straightforward what he's saying, and you only need to look at the Egyptians themselves, and their pantheon is made up of dog-headed gods, hippo-headed gods, alligator-headed gods, hawk-headed gods. So it's just correlating exactly what they're already telling you.
Since you yourself, this is very interesting. Since you yourselves, Egyptians, why do you fight it out against one another and have implacable wars about your religion? At this rate, we must not call you Egyptians, nor indeed in general call you men, because you breed up with great care beasts of a nature quite contrary to that of men.
Wow.
I don't know why people think that the dog-headed men on your Egyptian hieroglyphics are fake. I'm reading you a historical dude who was alive at that time talking about these things.
Who's not
He was
only,
alive.
he's saying, go ahead, Top.
He was alive at the time of Christ, right?
No, shortly right after.
So still during these times. But he's highlighting here, he's like, not only are you not unified as Egyptians, you're not one people because you're bickering amongst each other over what I imagine is just the contest of their lowercase g gods, right? The same way that the Nephilim would fight each other for dominance and things. It's probably the same way these chimeric creatures treated one another. And then also to say that your population is so made up of crazy creatures that we can't even call you man necessarily, because it's much more than just human beings inhabiting Egypt.
Yeah, and it's very fascinating when you see this, because it's so clear that he's talking about these creatures that are not they're not fully human, and he's like saying that they fight, they have personality to some extent, but they can't talk, by the way, side note. And if you read this in history, they lack the ability to talk. Wow. And it's very, and if you read it and in fact, one of the words for beast in Japanese, I'm going to tell you right now because it's ancient Chinese as well. It's actually two mouths plus one mouth, then the word garden, and then one mouth afterwards, which implies that they could speak, but there is a loss of speaking after an event in the garden.
Are they telepathic?
Yes, and we depict their telepathy, their telepathic nature as something of a divine nature, something of like superpower, supernatural. No.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite. Their telepathic nature is a sign of weakness.
Yes.
They are incapable of speaking.
Yes,
and so
they
like,
are incapable of using the word.
Because the word is to prophesy. Every word out your mouth is to prophesy. God disabled their ability to prophesy.
Wow.
If you make a chimera thing. So that's why aliens and stuff, they don't talk. That's why they talk only in your mind, because they're chimeric.
Bigfoot, the same thing.
Yes. They don't speak with words, and it's not a sign of power. It's a sign of weakness.
Oh, I love that. And you know what's crazy is we perceive it as a sign of power, because when people have these cryptic experiences and all of a sudden they're dealing with something that's communicating telepathically, it's so jarring, it's so amazing that you almost take it as a sign of, something powerful. It's not. It's the opposite. Wow.
It's completely the opposite.
Oh,
and here's the thing. Like, I deal with demons all the time, and demons talk in your mind. Like, I deal with people when I'm around people that are demonically influenced. The demons will talk to me in my mind. So I've gotten akin to this. I'm actually pretty used to like dealing with demons speaking words in your mind, and like, you know what they're saying, because you'll respond to the thing, and the person will be like, how did you know I thought that? And it's like, I don't know that you thought that. I could overwhelmingly hear something speaking out to me when I was addressing the demon inside of you.
Right. And also, you didn't think that. This thing is...
Yeah, exactly. And they thought it was their own thought. And I'm like, bro, it ain't your own thought, man. There is something else putting that thought in your head.
In your estimation, having firsthand experience with that sort of thing, am I off the mark by saying that's much more common than you, would imagine? So many of your thoughts that pass through your awareness are not at all yours. So I almost just want to say to people, like, this isn't something, those extreme cases when people are experiencing demonic oppression and things like that, we kind of have an idea of what that looks like, but there's also the minutia of it, where what you think is intrusive thoughts are intrusive, but they are not thoughts.
No, there's something demonic. I would go as far as to say 80 to 90% of the thoughts that are in your head are not your own. That's how far I would go to think. Like with what I've experienced and what I've seen, it's either the angel of the Lord, and like we call it your conscience. That's an angel speaking to you. Like you call it your conscience. You don't even recognize that angels are talking to you. And so like there's angels speaking to you, and there's the Holy Spirit speaking to you, whatever you want to call it, and there's demons talking to you. And so like the things that give natural evil projections, like people will, when I start talking to people that have demons, immediately they're like, oh my gosh, like they can't even look at me. They'll be like, why? Like, dude, every time I look at you, I'm getting like this image of like killing you or something. And I'm like, it's normal, dude. It's a demon. Like, I'm like, don't even trip. Because the demons are projecting what they want into the person's thought. And I'm like, this is a great example for me to express to you how demons communicate, because they're like, why does this keep coming in? Like, I heard something say like, punch him in the face. And I'm like, bro. And they're like, I know that wasn't me saying that, but it sounded like me. I'm like, this is how demons work. And now you're aware that there's demons talking to you. And like, because most people aren't aware of it. They think it's their own thoughts. But it's
something
like,
it's been there forever. So you take it for granted. You would just imagine that this is the normal function of the human mind. And, you know, even that idea of like, this is happening in your mind, as if the inside of your mind is a space where things happen. It's like, no, you're perceiving some aspect of the spiritual realm at all times, but you take it for granted. You don't see it as profound because it's there with you since the day that you're born. So you just go, this is just a natural function of the human mind. But I think that with conversations like these and others that we've had on the show, I'm really coming to a place now where like I recognize it actually, like the urge to do a thing that I know is detrimental to me in any which way, whether it's like drinking or indulging in something sinful, I guess. I'll recognize that as almost an external nudge now. And I see it, and I'm like, I recognize it as not indicative of myself. It's not me, and I think that gives you strength actually to then resist it more so than you would if you believed it was your own natural urges. What if people that don't have an internal monologue, are they more blessed because they're retarded?
Yeah,
I don't know if that's
NPC,
real.
Right?
Do you think that that's real, you guys? I don't know if people don't have an internal dialogue. I know that narrative has been spun, but I don't know if that's real.
So I would just go as far as to say that, like, yeah, everybody are being planted thoughts, whether it's an internal monologue or whether it's an image or an idea planted in your head. So it doesn't really matter if you perceive it with words or if you perceive it in feelings or emotions or actions, but you perceive something in your mind regardless. And that's my personal opinion on that matter, because I've seen it happen. I know a lot of people that are like, yeah, I don't think with words. And I'm like, yeah, but you think with feelings. And I'm like, and that's how the demonic spirit will be influencing the person. So I wouldn't know if it was necessarily blessed. I would say that it's actually, maybe it could be a good thing because you can avoid it, but it's also a bad thing because you don't even know when something's demonic's talking to you. You know what I mean? Like you can't even tell.
Your kind of perception is dulled, it seems, maybe.
Yeah, and it's just a gift, you know. It's just a gift that, you know, certain people have the gift of discernment of spirits, is what it's called in the Bible, and some people have it, and some people don't have it, you know. And it's a variety. It's a wavering line of like, what is that gift? You know, how well developed does that go in certain individuals?
This is an interesting question here too, from Not Nice Guy. It says, "What about the written word?" And I'm not too sure what the answer to that is, but it does make me wonder about when somebody sets out to sit down with pen and paper and write out an entire thing. Where is that information coming from? Often, if you're setting out to write a work of fiction, you know, that's when the muses sort of kick in, and then all of a sudden you're drawing this information you feel like is coming in, and that's a little bit of a problem too, because especially if what you're writing is profound and is something that you enjoy, oftentimes people love their own works, and it makes you go, well, is it even yours? If it's a work of fiction, and you're cooking all this up from your imagination, at what point does that information start to arrive to you so rapidly and fluidly that it's seemingly coming from a different source outside of yourself?
Yeah, well, that's called, you know, they have a term for it, and it's a channeling practice, you know, and so like there is automatic writing is what they call it. So automatic writing is, have you guys know about that?
No,
so
I've actually never heard of that.
Yeah, so automatic writing is a form of channeling, which is actually how J.R. or Tolkien, what's her name? He might have written who the Harry Potter girl? What's her name? Rowling admits to automatic writing. And so there's people that channel while they're writing, and most written stories, I'm going to tell you right now, I would say like 50% of the movies are automatically written. They're written through automatic channeling. Like I would say like at least 50% of them, maybe not most, but
Stephen King.
Well,
Yeah.
someone was just on Merkel talking about Hollywood, and we would say Hollywood's demonic, but he said Hollywood has been prophesying for the last century or so.
Demonically prophesying. Yes, I would
Yeah,
agree with that.
It's being spoken to by somebody, but it's telling you what has happened and what it will happen. Yeah.
Well, the demons can't. Again, demons lack a voice, right? So their voice is to get you to speak it. Like, this is how prophecy works. This is how the authority of your word works. Like, we have spun the webs that our world is now held in, okay, through our words, because we speak it, and then the demons have permission to do it. The demons have permission to go and make this thing effect. Like, demons are very weak, okay? Demons are very, very weak in the physical sense. They're very weak in this world. They can't do a whole lot. Maybe they can scratch you. Maybe they can push you. Maybe they can like make footsteps across your ceiling or whatever. Like they're physically weak. Okay, unless they have a physical body, and then they have a little bit more physicality to this reality. Okay, but for the most part, demons are pretty pathetic. I deal with them regularly, and so like the reality, and everybody's like, oh, demons are scary. No, they're not. Because it's scary because you can't see them, but they can't even, they don't have a physical form. How scary is that? Like, they're invisible. Like,
Right.
Like, you know, they're pretty pathetic. And my light just turned off. Demons.
I saw that. They're like,
Demons.
oh yeah, dude, watch
Dude,
this.
Straight
Now
up,
your
demons.
background is just wood, bro.
Yeah, if I wasn't that tough, how come I could turn your light off? This does go perfectly, though, into what Ed Mabry says, which is the way that you engage in spiritual warfare is through the word. And so they don't even have the ability to do that. But I do like that idea, because somebody said, we often talk about how it doesn't seem like they can create. The fallen can't create. These demons can't create. They can only invert what has already been created. But it does seem that one of the ways they can do something that's akin to creation is by getting us to do a thing.
Yep, that's it. They pervert, and they get you, they influence you to speak what they want into this reality. And movies are a prime example of that. Right. So they're like, movies are literally a form of demonic prophecy. That's why I don't watch them, because like, you watch them and you come into agreement with whatever they're prophesying over everybody. Like, just like that White Noise movie, they prophesied that White Noise movie to happen exactly. A train derails in that exact sound of East Palestine.
It's
and
insane.
Poisonous chemicals leak out, and then all of a sudden that actually happens in real life. Like, the
Did you
exact
catch this
scenario.
layer to that film, Brian? Is one of the things I love bringing this up. I'm so glad that you did, because one of the things that was really fascinating about that film is during the time of the train derailment and the chemical spill, we were also being bombarded with the idea of this object floating across the sky. It was the Chinese balloon, weather balloon, whatever the hell it was, the spy balloon. And at the same
That's a
time,
satellite, but
if you were paying attention, which I think everybody who was a sort of a conspiracy theorist or had that bent during that time, their ears perked up, and we were all looking to see, well, what else is going on? And Uruguay was reporting that they supposedly shot one down. China was reporting that they had craft in their airspace. Canada was also reporting that they had unexplained, aerial phenomenon in their airspace. And I think it even went to a couple of other countries. So for a moment in time, I was standing in my living room like a madman, screaming to my wife that it's coming. I told you it's coming. And eventually it all goes away. Now, the reason that's significant is because this film, White Noise, was shot almost like a Kubrick film, meaning that the background was rich with subliminal messaging. And the messaging that is, and I tell anybody, go back and watch this film. I feel like the reason they called it white noise, because it doesn't really apply to a train derailment, is because the film itself was white noise. It was just distracting noise happening in the foreground. In the background, every opportunity there was to show the news, every opportunity there was to show a newspaper, any opportunity there was for a magazine, anything like that, you could see that in this fictional world, what was happening in the background of the train derailment were UFOs were landing. And they weren't drawing any attention to it, but it was on the news in the background of the film. It was on the newspaper in the background of the film. Every chance they got. And what I noticed is that the characters would almost just kind of be having a charismatic dialogue about nothing. So it was engaging, but they weren't really saying anything. And it was almost meant to distract you from the real thing that was happening behind the white noise, which was this constant theme of UFOs. I'm telling you, man, it was the weirdest thing. Because I caught that, and I was, whether or not it's like a manifestation thing, or you could just get carried away in the ways that it's disturbing in how it applies to our reality. It was very strange. But I'm telling people, go back, watch that film, and you will see in the background, there's a moment when they're in a shelter, and they're all having to escape the shelter for whatever reason. They're being moved to another location. There's a TV in there. It's talking about UFOs landing. And I just thought that was incredible. So
a lot of Michael Jackson music videos as well. I think like Black or White, the kids, is it Black or White? Like Macaulay Culkin, before he blasts his dad to Africa with a guitar, on the TV they're talking about UFOs, or on a newspaper. I'm just like, why is that there? Why are you constantly just
priming us? Predictive programming, manifesting it, whatever the case may be. It's
demonic prophecy, bro.
Demonic prophecy.
That's what I call it.
So let's go back to this conversation we're happening about the nature of what was happening in Egypt. Because to me, it seems like Egypt, for as advanced as it was and how spiritually advanced that they were in many ways, right? Their practices were, they put a lot of emphasis on the soul, the journey of the soul and the afterlife, things of that nature. But it almost, am I wrong in getting this impression? Obviously, anything lesser than God is missing the mark, right? But I can almost have some empathy for a culture that is being deceived by fallen angels. And I might even be able to have some empathy for a culture that is worshiping the children of those fallen angels. But they kind of were just worshiping monsters, like screwed up, chimeric, hybrid monsters, which even seems a step down from the Nephilim themselves. Do you think that am I wrong in that? Or were these things much more grandiose than maybe I'm giving them credit for?
No, they were definitely just in the category of monsters, and they couldn't speak, but they could speak through their mind. And so people thought, again, the same thing. Oh, they must be special. They can talk to our minds. Oh, they're gods. Oh, they're special. But they're just these rotting flesh beasts that it said. It says, who is there in the text? Josephus says, who is there among the world that does not know that Egypt is filled full with all sorts of diseases and sickness. So Egypt was rampant.
Today's episode is brought to you by PurgeStore.com. What if I told you that more people have died from parasites than have ever died from war? What if I told you that diseases like cancer, multiple sclerosis, acne rosacea, and rheumatoid arthritis can all be treated with parasite medication? Rid your body of these all too common parasites by using Purge Parasite Cleanse. Purge Parasite Cleanse is made with ingredients like zinc, carrot powder, garlic, black walnut. These are all natural ingredients that keep you safe while killing the parasites. And while you're on PurgeStore.com, try out their Digestives to promote healthy gut bacteria and aid in digestion. These, as well as any other products on PurgeStore.com, can be purchased with a promo code NEPHILIM, NEPHILIM, will save you 15% off of your entire purchase at PurgeStore.com.
With disease and sickness from the hybridization, chimerization that was going on with these animals. It not only, so it shortened your life expectancy. And you can see this in the Bible. Like it says, like, their life expectancy shall be 120 years. A lot of people don't know that verse is referring to the Nephilim. Do you know that? That's not referring to man.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so if you read Genesis 6, it says the Nephilim giants were there in those days and afterwards, when the sons of daughter came into the daughters of men. It says, and God said, my spirit shall not reside with men forever, for he is mortal. His days shall be 120. Now the Nephilim were there in those days and after. So the verse, and then it talks about the Nephilim again. So it talks about Nephilim, talks about man's age should be 120, and then talks about Nephilim again. What makes you think that verse has anything to do with humans? He says, it says, my spirit, which is the spirit of God, which are the sons of God, shall not reside with man, be joined with man forever, which is the union between God, Nephilim, and flesh, or fallen angel and flesh. That's the spirit of God being joined. So he's saying, my spirit shall not be joined with man forever, for man is mortal. So it says, the number of the Nephilim's age shall not exceed 120 years old. So he's telling you that the Nephilim's age is not 120. And this isn't referring to humans' age, because after that, Like multiple people lived past 120 after that verse was written in the Bible. Multiple people. And so you're like, okay, clearly the God wasn't setting the limit age on man at 120 in this verse. But that's a huge misconception that a lot of Christians, I explain this, and I try to tell this to normal Christians, I just point out the fact that other people were like older after that. And then they're like, oh, huh. And I'm like, so is your Bible wrong? Or do you think that that verse is not referring to man? No, it's referring to Nephilim. And it's like, well, why does it refer to Nephilim? And why does people's life expectancy get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter as time goes on? Well, because as time went on, the hybridization and the Nephilim genetic sequencing got more and more prevalent in the genome, which shortened the life expectancy of humanity down to 120. So we all have Nephilim blood in us now at this point.
Shit.
And so like people don't realize that, but like basically it's in all of us at this point. And that's why our max life expectancy is 120. It's limited to the expectancy of what the Nephilim were. That's what that means.
You know, on the topic of the disease too that was happening, you imagine that just because you can create a hybrid creature does not mean that you have a handle on the pestilence that will be associated with it. In other words, like if you can hybridize two creatures that have a tendency, one to be afflicted with one disease and the other to be afflicted with another, are you effectively hybridizing? In other words, it almost seems like you are practicing a old time version of gain of function research.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you have these creatures that are walking around unprecedented, you know, no real research done into their biologics because they're new, they're chimeric, they don't reproduce, this is this one-off thing. And what happens suddenly when you're subjected to a thing that has made this ill? You know what I mean? So I think that that could link in pretty nicely with the idea of not only the diseases that were prevalent during Egypt, but also the plagues that came after, because it's like God has, put these plagues on Egypt, but we don't put a tremendous amount of thought into the origins because God has created all matter and everything. And so the building blocks by which these diseases and pestilence come about are his building blocks. And so if it was prophesied that there will be plagues upon Egypt, who knows what amount of them came from these hybridized creatures.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's
You know
all
what's
from
interesting?
distortion.
I'm just looking up. I was looking up Moses because someone in the chat was talking about Moses dying at 120. He did die at 120.
Well, Moses
it's like-
came from the land of Egypt where they were hybridizing genetics.
Right. It's very strange because he was not old. He wasn't old. His eyes weren't failing. He wasn't weak.
Yep.
He just dies at 120 and is not led into the land. It's like, what's going on with Moses?
Moses came from that area, that region. He was probably experimented on. More than likely, he probably had some type of injected Nephilim genome sequence put into his body. So he was ceased at the age of 120. Just like and because it says he was young as he was as a 20-year-old when he died at the age of 120.
Could that be then the reason, or have something to do with the fact that Moses is often depicted with horns?
That is a very fascinating subject. But that's because I don't believe the Moses with horns is even Moses. The Moses depictions with horns is actually Zeus. But I mean, we can get into that whole nother subject. But yes, there is some connection there.
This is something that I've seen explained away by, and if it's too much of a tangent to go down, that's understandable.
This is a big tangent, but it's great.
But I mean, I've seen people explain it away as sort of, it's a symbolic gesture that is meant to convey one thing or another, but not to be taken literally.
Well, go back to it. Bring up the Moses. Just type in Vatican Moses with horns. Okay. And so that right there, you can see it, but I want to see the full picture because I'll show you why it's not Moses.
That's interesting too, because the idea that he wouldn't have seen the Promised Land.
Yeah. Okay. So pick up. No, not that one. Go close that one. Click the one with the women, the two women next to him right there. Yeah, the left over one to the left. That right there. Okay. So here's the deal. There's two women standing to the left and right of this supposed Moses who has horns. Okay. Now let me tell you something. he has two women and they're short. They're shorter than he is. They're like significantly shorter. If you
Yeah,
can see
that's
a front
true.
facing, you're like, he's a giant actually.
Well, Brian, that's just meant to convey that this person was much more important than this other
Right,
person. So
right.
instead of just inscribing important on their foot or something like that, they made him like 5 times the size of the other people.
Exactly. And then not only that, they made him bigger, but do you know what else is significant about those two women? Those two women, they like to tell you that's see how big he's sitting down and he's as tall as they are.
Every time
Now,
I'm
here's
like,
here's the fascinating part. That's Rachel and Leah, his great 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 grandmother and great 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 step grandmother. Like I mean like what is why would Moses be like having his great 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 step grandmother and grandmother next to him? Okay, that seems a little suspicious and ridiculous, right? Let me give you another narrative of who you think that actually is. There's a depiction of Zeus. If you type in Zeus with horns, Zeus has got horns.
Dude, this upsets me so much because it's like each of these lowercase g gods is so interchangeable. It's like the identifying them has become so obfuscated throughout history that it's like, well, actually, no, this person is interchangeable with that person is interchangeable with that person, and it's such a line to unravel.
But once you unravel it, makes so much sense because you're just like, okay, this is it. I mean, it's clear. There's a horn on the side of the coin. You can see if you click on images, you'll see that there's Zeus with horns. Like if you type in Zeus with horns, you'll see him all over the place. So there's.
So then this is the same character as like Hadad.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Zeus has horns, and here's the crazy part. There you go. There he is, right there.
Oh, wow.
Again. So Zeus has horns. You know what else Zeus has? Zeus was a giant, and so he was a little bit bigger than the average person, right? And another thing Zeus has is 2 favored wives. Oh, isn't that fascinating? I thought that was his great great grandmother and great 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 step grandmother.
So there he is, just posing with his biddies.
Yeah, literally. That's literally Zeus. Like, and it's so undeniable when you look into it. You're just like, okay, that makes a whole lot more sense that ain't Moses.
So then where my head was going, which is this idea that Moses wasn't allowed into the promised land because potentially there seems to be some sort of basis for Nephilim blood.
Zeus with his 2 wives.
There it is. Interesting.
His favored wives.
And look at how big he is sitting next to them.
Yeah, he's sitting down.
Bro,
it's funny
that's
because
the
even the
same
proportions.
depiction.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
like,
the
look
same
at that.
depiction. Proportionately speaking,
Yo,
their
what
heads
the
are level, but he's
fuck
sitting down.
is going on right now? With the
I love it, dude. I love it.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great relief. That is Zeus. That is not Moses. They lied to you. And anytime you see Moses with horns, that's a depiction of Zeus.
Incredible.
wow, that's awful, dude.
Yeah, it's
That's awful, man. Incredible.
I think I have a video talking about that, but maybe I'll make another one to specify it out more clearly. Because it's just so fascinating. When you know that, you're just like, okay, it's so clear. It's so clear that they're lying to you.
So all right, going back to this conversation, right, of these entities that are being worshipped in Egypt, I think that there's a fascinating group in the Bible that I'd like to see if there's anything to expand on here. But this idea of the lion-faced men of Moab,
yeah,
which the way that modern day theologists explain it is that lion face just meant to convey that they were fierce warriors. And and it's just weird because it's like clearly the ancients were masterful in their architecture, in their written languages, that the systems that they came up with, but they just could not figure out ways to convey ideas like greatness to us or fierceness to us without creating lion people or horned people or giants, because everything else was about accuracy. It's like when you built the temples, the geometry had to be so perfect and the measurements had to be so perfect and the numbers had to be unbelievable when you laid them out and looked at the patterns. But when it came to language that we use to describe like big people or little people or people of importance, they just couldn't figure that out and they had to use euphemisms. And so what are your thoughts then on the lion face men of Moab?
Okay, I'm going to read one last thing from Josephus's writings.
Let's go.
And then I'll answer that.
I kind of like Josephus too. He's got some fun stuff.
Dude.
Maybe that's something I should be looking into.
It's very fascinating.
I can't read
send
though,
you all my
so
tabs.
I have to watch videos.
Okay, I get you. I feel I have the same problem sometimes.
No, dude,
Okay,
you
so-
read. There's tabs. Don't try to make yourself dumb for me.
So
Please continue.
this is his disclosure concerning Hades. So this is Josephus's perspective of what he thinks heaven will be like. Okay, it's called the Disclosures Concerning Hades. It just means afterlife. Okay, and this is one of the last stanzas in his disclosure of what he actually thinks when he gets to heaven, what the heavenly realm will be like. Okay, there's some debate whether he wrote it, but it's pretty obvious he wrote it. Anyways, there will be no more generations of wild beasts.
Nice.
Okay. Nor will the substance of the rest of the animals shoot out anymore. For
I'm sorry?
it will. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
They be
Wait.
squirting.
Animals be squirting, dude.
nor will the substance of the rest of the animals shoot out anymore. For it will not produce men. It will not produce men. Okay. But the number of the righteous will continue and never fail, together with the righteous angels and the spirits of God, and with his word as the choir of the righteous men and women that never grow old. That is the last sort of stanza component.
Okay, follow
It's a
me
lot
here.
to unpack.
You reminded me of my favorite verse, Ezekiel 23:20. Haven't spoke about this one in a long time, but it describes a woman named Oholibah who lusted after lovers with genitals as large as donkeys and emissions like those of a horse. This is in the Bible, and I remember. Yeah,
I've never heard that verse.
Dude,
Yeah, dude.
That
would
makes so
literally-
much sense.
I rebuke anybody that gets mad at me for
I
inappropriate
rebuke-
jokes now.
Imagine this guy just blowing loads.
That looks
But
like
that's
Jar
what they're
Jar
talking
Binks.
about. It always, we were like, what are they talking about? They're talking about black people. What is that? What does that
Well,
mean?
here, bring it up again. Bring up
Well,
that
I'm-
image again, because I think this is hilarious. It's like you
Yeah.
look upon this and you say, this was a metaphor. And it's like, why didn't you don't have to use metaphor when you're constructing a small statue. You can just make the statue accurate to the thing that you're describing. You don't have to make a upright lion man. But of course, the ancients were just really caught up in flowery language, I suppose.
So what was that verse you quoted again? Like, read it to me.
It's a banger.
Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up right now. Yeah, where are we at? Our Bible. I have my Bible app. Here we go.
I just
Bible.
love the whole, and animals will no longer shoot
Ezekiel-
their substance.
Ezekiel 23:20, and it says, "For she doted upon their paramours, whose flesh is as the flesh of asses, and whose issue is like the issue of horses." That's the King James version, but obviously when-
No. There is a lot more meaning to that verse.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
Is
oh
there?
yeah, bro. I gotta
This
read
is not
this.
just about shooting loads. I
Oh
think
no,
that's-
this is very fascinating. Okay. I'm gonna have to do a deep
Am I
dive on
teaching
this
you
one.
something right now? Oh,
Finally, we rarely get to show anybody something that they don't know.
I wish we weren't so caught up on horse semen, because you did an episode recently about Obama's birth certificate, and I feel like that is super important for whatever reason, because that's how we got Trump. We were talking
Brian
about
did an
that.
episode on Obama's birth certificate. Let's go.
Yeah,
dude.
it
That's
went viral.
awesome.
Bring me on again. We'll talk about
Hell
that in another
yeah,
episode.
absolutely.
We'll
I'm
talk
very,
about
because
that.
I don't know if you've been. The way we've been looking at this administration as it comes up is it's like you have Trump and he's doing the Obama birth certificate, and then you have Rogan and the whole like lockdown era, and you have Alex Jones, and
Yeah,
obviously
it
he's
might
a
be
big.
the
You have
press
Tucker
secretary.
Carlson and the demonic experiences. You have RFK and the fluoride in the water and the whole
They want us
vaccine
to read
schedule thing.
Verse 19, yet she multiplied her whoredoms in calling to remembrance the days of her youth, wherein she had played the harlot in the land of Egypt.
Oh, in Egypt, huh? Isn't that
In
fascinating?
Egypt, yeah, yes, man. This is always one
It's
of these
all
things.
connected, baby.
Is one of these scriptures where like you'd pull it up and like you're a kid in Bible study, like 16 years, like, look at this, pfft, it's talking about horse cum, huh? And everybody laughs. This
whoredom.
one, and I wonder, there's also another one about the guy with the bald head that they insult him, and then he's like, oh yeah, bears,
Elijah.
and like, yeah, and bears
Yeah,
just
sure.
kill the kids.
Yeah, so that was the she bears, by the way, which
Oh,
is
yeah?
specific. It
Bears.
doesn't necessarily mean bears. Like, it could have meant like some type
Hairy
of
women?
hybrid bear animal-esque creatures that came out and ate the children. or mauled
Interesting.
them. Yeah,
all
bro.
over
And
the
so
place.
yeah, it's all over. Like, people don't understand. I'm gonna read you some crazy stuff in Leviticus here in a second.
Let's
You're gonna, and it relates to the same topic that we were just talking about. So you'll get a kick out of some parts of it. But the fascinating part. So okay, so now we've talked about Tim Waltz was prophesied. Okay,
The
So now
horse,
we-
the horse
Not
cum.
nice
Do
guy.
you know about that?
no.
Oh wait, okay. Quick aside. I forgot what it was called. It was like it's an ancient Chinese, like not a remedy, but it's a way to gain knowledge. It's like has
Bok
to do
saga.
with the Bok saga, I suppose. Yeah, and it's like drinking horse semen. So there was an article years ago about Tim Walz having to have his stomach pumped because he drank too much of this. But basically, the idea is to like, he thought that he could
That's
drink
how you
this
get
and then.
demons.
That's how you get demons, bro. Stop
straight
Well,
up.
I don't know about what Tim Waltz is very smart now. Correlation? I don't know. Maybe.
That's why his eyes look like that. I don't know.
Who knows how much smarter he'd be if they didn't pump it out? If he maybe had to fight him off.
You
No,
gotta
leave it
let it
alone. It's
simmer.
mine.
Okay,
You gotta let it simmer.
All right,
Unbelievable.
guys.
All right. Please
So let
continue.
me read you some stuff. Okay, so now we've kind of covered the historical.
Now let's read the Bible.
Let's read the Bible. We need to get back to the Bible, yeah. Okay, so now that we've talked about historical stuff. I just shared a little bit of historical stuff about Egypt from one dude, Josephus. If we were to go, there's multiple plethora of content that we could talk about historically that alludes to the lion of Moab and these animal-human hybrid things. But the most fascinating stuff, I think, is the biblical illustrations, because the Bible, so many people are opposed to the biblical narrative, playing out like this ever happened. And it's right in your face. They just changed the words, guys. Like, it's straight up in your face. And so one of the very fascinating components to this is in Leviticus 21:17. All right. I'm just going to go reading through this. This is so fascinating. Okay. It says, so say to Aaron, for the generations to come, none of your descendants who have a defect may come near to offer food of his God. So these are people that are not allowed to go into the temple to make the offerings to the Lord where the Ark of the Covenant is. He's like saying you can't come in. Nobody who has a defect may come near to offer a food. Okay.
Defect.
Yes. And it says none of your generations who has a blemish. Okay. So there's a bunch of stuff relating to this. Now I'm going to get into this part real quick.
That goes into Noah, right, where he was perfect in his generations. So no blemishes upon his generation. So that's what they're talking about here.
Basically, okay. And
but if you take it at its face, you go, oh, it's whoever has like a smaller arm, or whoever has like vitiligo. Like, no, that's not.
Well, wait till we get into the other translations, and you're going to be like, whoa. Okay, no man who has any defect may come near, no man who is blind or lame, disfigured or deformed. Okay, now I'm going to read you in the English Standard Version that same sentence. Okay, no man who is blind or lame, or one who has a mutilated face or a limb too long. What?
A limb too long.
A limb too long. Oh, wait a second. No man who is blind or lame, disfigured or deformed. Okay, no man who has a flat nose or anything superfluous. A flat nose? What are they talking about here?
A reductionist point of view is literally like it's kind of a clown's take on it. It's like, oh, well, God just didn't like you if you had, but it's like, well, if you look at, let's just say the lion-faced men of Moab, right? You would have had a flat nose.
You would exactly. Wait, you would have a flat nose. And wait, there's more. Let me keep going, and then we'll break it all down. So no man who has a marred face or a limb too long is another translation. But here's this one, and this is New American Standard. No one who has a slit nose. Oh, now it's starting to make a little bit more sense, isn't it? So what do you think rabbits have?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they got a slit nose. They sure do. What do you think a cleft palate is?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, no. Joaquin Phoenix? Come on, dude. Don't
I'm
do
telling
that.
you right now. The
That's why he's such
cleft
a great
palate,
actor.
that is a descendant of Nephilim-esque bloodline genetics popping up. This is why Jesus healed people, by the way. It wasn't just he was healing people as a cool party trick. He was restoring what the Nephilim genetic sequence is broken. Every disease in our gene pool today is a descendant of animal, mixed, angel, genetically modified perversions happening into our genomes. All of it. All the sickness is it. Just like there was all the sickness rampant in Egypt. Okay. All the sickness that we're dealing with today. Okay. So for anyone who has a defect shall not approach a blind who has a limb too long. It says a slit nose or any conspicuous feature, or who has a disfigured face or a deformed limb, a disfigured face, has a disfigured face or a limb that is disformed or a limb too long. Okay, so do you see that I'm getting at things that sounds a little bit strange, right?
Right.
And here's
by the
another
way,
one.
there is a lot of precedent for when these people are having these cryptid encounters and they're describing this horrifying thing that they've seen. Oftentimes they get hung up on the length of the limbs. I don't know if that fits into the equation here, but it's something that I've noticed.
Yes, and then here's another one who has an ear who's cut. A cut ear. And now we look at the cut ear component, and I'm trying to find where it's at exactly because I'll read it to you. But the when you look at the cut ear component, you're like, what does that mean? What does like a cut ear mean? And so when you see that, let me bring it up real quick.
There are people, and I don't know if this is where you're going with it. These people are very obnoxious, but they're getting a plastic surgery where they're faking elf ears.
Elf ears?
Elf ears, yeah. And man, I mean, what an obnoxious thing to do. I like Lord of the Rings too, but relax. And so, I don't know, maybe that feels like a bit of a stretch. But cut ears is a weird one.
Okay,
So
let me read
later-
you this one. Let me read you this one. So a man who is blind or lame, whose nose is cut off, or one who is deprived of ears, okay? A man who's lame or blind or a flat nose or whose ear is deformed, okay? Or he who has anything maimed or anything too long, or he whose nose is disfigured or his ears cut. Okay. Now I'm gonna tell you what this word is. I went to a rabbi and had to go figure out what this actual word in Hebrew translated to. Okay.
Which word is that?
The word that they're translating is the ears cut and the ears disformed and all this stuff. Right? So like if we were to depict an alien right now, what do? You draw a person, make him green, and give him pointy ears, right? So why is it, we depict a magical creature? What do? You give a person and you give him pointy ears. Why is it with the pointy ears? Okay, what is the significance of the pointy ears? Okay, well, if you were to type in horn growth on ears into Google, let's see if it bring up some stuff. Horn growth on ears. There is a random genetic defect that happens to humans spontaneously where they will get pointy horns on the tips of their ears.
That's interesting.
It's very strange. If you type in, it's going to be kind of a hard one to like bring up necessarily, but you'll find them because I've seen quite a few of these images.
That's like people who have, there it goes, yeah.
There you go, bro.
Looks like a tooth, dude.
Yeah, it does look like a hook or a tooth or whatever, And so there's these weird defects that those are the most main ones. But if you go click on those images at the top, yeah, well, you can type in Asian woman with horns.
I've seen that before, and that's a really weird thing because they go, "Oh, that's a calcium buildup, and it's a defect. It's the body's
except for it's symmetrical."
Right.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's like you're telling me that the body has lost its ability to regulate.
There she is.
Yeah.
Look, and see the other horn growing?
Yep, it's trying to develop on the other side, mirrored.
Yeah, it's already starting. Yeah. Or you can type in Ali Onter. So type in Ali Onter. His name is Ali Onter. Anter. Yeah, Ali Onter. There you go. Now this one, that dude has two. Look at that.
Like
look at
Ali
the first
antlers.
picture.
Am I right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, this is the word antler actually stems from a similar word. The word onter stems from aunt, which means the Ents. You ever seen Lord of the Rings? The big giant tree people? They're called the Ents. That's his name, Onter. Enter. That's literally what it is.
The center of his head.
Yeah, well, do the top one. Go to the top. The top left one. Bring it up bigger because you'll see him when he was younger and he has the two and the yeah. Click on that one. So you can see the two horns there before they chopped him off and when he was younger.
Oh, they cut him off. Yeah.
Because he died when they cut one of them off, and so they were cutting off the other one.
Oh man, it killed him.
Yeah, he was 140 years old, by the way. Side note.
What?
Huh.
140
So he wasn't a
years
Nephilim.
old. Well, he's mostly human at this point, so most of the Nephilim blood has bred out of our society, and now we just have animal, human blood that's in us mostly. It's no longer angelic blood that is in us anymore. So our life expectancy could essentially be still extended.
To this point, it is funny. Poisoned. Shout out Nancy. She says we saw a giant black dude with a horn coming out of his forehead on Timeline Cleanse. That's my other show, and we did. It was played in a comedy context, but in Africa, I imagine it was Africa. It seemed kind of like a rural, undeveloped area. There was a guy that He was tremendous. He was a huge dude. I mean, like a
Muscle guy.
physical specimen,
I've seen it.
incredibly muscular, and a perfectly formed rhinoceros horn on his front head, on his forehead. And you know, as the medical industry explains it, this body's inability to regulate a calcium deposit that grows out of control. Man, I mean, you would expect that to just happen randomly. It might happen on your cheek or something like that. This was dead center in the middle of his forehead, and it was about the best you could ever hope for. Like, if I was going to have a rhinoceros horn, and I was like, well, I mean, if I have to have it, can it at least look nice? It was nice. It was well done. It grew, it looked healthy. It looked appropriate. It was
Did he
very
brush it?
strange.
Kept it
Very
Okay,
strange.
so I'm gonna burst the bubble. I looked into it and I found that it might have been a movie, the prop thing. that they were doing.
Unbelievable.
And because I looked into it, because I saw that guy too, and I've seen all the weird ones online, and I try to find the truth, right? And it was, it's not 100% because there was no movie linked to it, but supposedly it was for something that they were filming, some off-budget film thing they were filming potentially. That's what I've concluded, but I don't know 100%. Okay, so
Well, as long as there's a percentage out there, I'm going to believe it as entirely true. And
I
I'm going
wanted to use
continue
it
to
so
spread the
bad. I
word.
wanted to believe it too, honestly. But like, you know, there's a point where we become truth seekers or belief defenders, right?
Yes,
And
yes,
it's like
yes, yes.
it's like we want to believe it, and it's like,
Yep.
man, that would be such good evidence to prove my point of what I'm getting at. But at the same time, it's like
I didn't even have a point for it. I just wanted the world to be so cool
Brian,
that this guy existed.
Can we go back to Leviticus because there's more that goes on.
oh, there's more.
here.
Let me continue.
But wait,
Yes.
there's more.
Yeah, he's talking about broke-footed. I only have the King James version.
Oh,
Broke-footed,
great. Okay,
broke-handed.
ready?
Yeah.
Broke-footed
Yeah, let's
and
continue, okay?
broke-handed.
No man with a crippled foot or hand, which that's just broke foot handed, like that's normal, okay? That's not anything particular where it's very clear cut. Oh, the word, by the way, the stretched ear component, I was going to tell you, the word in Hebrew is the word described when you stretch skin over something that is not skin. It's a very strange word to create a different form. That's the word they have for that word.
I just
And
want to
it's-
say, what were they doing that they had to make a whole word for that?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a very unusual practice, but there's a word, and that's the word that we try to translate into cut ears. And it's like, or into something too long, because they would stretch the skin over it, another thing but it was stretched skin over another thing to make it look like it is something that is not.
This is like
That it is
lizard
not.
people that like when they put these skin
Yeah,
suits on, right?
there you go.
I mean, that word could be used for it as well. I forget the exact word, but that's the definition of the word. And I think it was used to like make skin into like cups or like holding devices potentially, or like some kind of like formed hardened thing. But there was a word for, that's the word used.
Are you
And
talking
so-
about foreskin? What are
That's
you
what it
saying?
seems like. It feels like
No, we're not talking about foreskin. We're not talking about foreskin.
we're not talking
Okay.
about foreskin.
But
That's
the,
interesting.
but yeah, that's the word. And so like when it comes to a cut ear, though, it also implies that something that's being spliced with another thing, like you cut a tree, right? And so like they're saying like that some component of this person can't be cut or spliced with another thing. And that's the idea, is that the person can't be stretched with skin of something else over it, meaning like it would look a little bit different, like have a flat nose like a rabbit, or a split lip, okay, because they're part lion man of Moab, like they're part lion.
The
They
split
would have-
nose thing, really, like that seems.
oh
That's
yeah,
right there.
oh absolutely, it's so clear. Okay, so now let's go to Levert. Okay, now here's the very fascinating one, verse 21:20. No one who is a hunchback or a dwarf, or who has an eye defect, or who is festering running sores or damaged testicles.
No uglies.
No uglies.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, eye defects, dwarf, hunchback, that's all very interesting stuff. Even the eye defects, to me, it's like, how might you then describe a slitted eye of a cat being?
That's this is very interesting that we even mentioned this up, because other translation says one who is bent over or is small, or whose eyebrows are fallen, or is dimmed, or wistish in his eyes, or has leprosy in him, or a hunchback, or one testicle. Or
Sorry, David.
or
You're out.
Crunchback.
Damn it,
Or is a
dude.
dwarf.
Wait,
or
they
is
said
a
one
dwarf-
testicle?
One testicle. Yeah.
Oh my god, dude! I had cancer. I have one testicle. I don't know. I hopefully don't have an issue with
Done,
this.
bro. You're not
But
getting
this
the temple.
So, can I just highlight for a moment here that we talked before about how the ancients are often basically dismissed as using flowery language to describe things in their sculptures. In other words, like if somebody's big, then it's because they were of great importance. And we were joking around about how they just, didn't have the language. But if you listen to what you're reading, they made really thorough attempts at using language to describe the finer details of things. You know what I mean? Like to the extent that we can't bridge the gap and we're confused. So I just want to highlight that because it's like they would have made an attempt to describe this person as
had to
just being
create words.
important.
Well,
Yeah.
let me bring up another translation term. Yeah, these words could mean multiple things. Okay, or humpback, or is a dwarf, or with a mixture in his eyes. Okay,
Mixture.
so it doesn't necessarily mean that you have bad eyes. And this one says scurvy person or broken testicles. Okay, or stones broken or damaged testicles. Or a particular member is broken, or has damaged testicles, crushed testicles. Okay, so this is what I got to get at right here. So hunchback dwarf, right? Something weird with your eyes, like two cone, like chimerism, where you got one eye color different than the, like you mentioned. Again, alluding to the hybridization of something. Okay, dwarfism is a form of hybridization. It's a form of angelic bloodline descent, and I'm going to tell you what that one is. We'll get in more detail on that one because that's very fascinating. And hunchback is a form of Nephilim genetic sequencing exploding in your spine to where it's like, and it's bigger and it hunches you. Okay, same with elephantiasis. Elephantiasis, where part of your body or skin just explodes because it's the Nephilim genome sequencing activating, and it's like boom, and it blows up inside of you.
Interesting.
Okay, that's what elephantiasis is. Again, it's a form of Nephilimization happening in the world today. And then here's the thing about broken testicles. It's not talking about you having one testicle. What it's talking about is
Thank you, Bryan.
when you mix a horse and a donkey, what do you get? A mule. What's this defect of a mule?
Big ass
Can't
nuts.
reproduce.
Oh.
It can't reproduce.
Like the lager, yeah.
It can't reproduce because it's got broken testicles. So it's literally telling you a being that is chimeric in nature or has hybridized in some capacity. Okay? They're sterile. That's what it means by broken testicle. It doesn't mean that they've been kicked in the nuts. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean their nuts got crushed by a rock. It means they genetically can't reproduce. Okay? Because they're genetically in like
And
We
mixed.
really
this
we
is what
really
they're
messed
doing
up.
now.
Oh, go ahead, Top.
This is the entire idea of of the UFO breeding program, like the L.A. Marzulli,
Mm-hmm.
what he'll talk about. They can't reproduce, or they're having trouble reproducing, so they have to do it through other means.
Exactly. Well, the aliens will, impregnate women, get their child, and then abduct the child out of the women, and that's how they reproduce, like at a certain age. And there's more to that whole subject. But the dwarfism thing is very a fascinating subject because there's another verse where it says in Galatians, in the New Testament, it talks about the Cretans, and it says the Cretans. So you type in New Testament verse Cretans. I gotta figure out which verse it is. It says, or type in slow bellies, Cretans.
It's very frustrating. It seems like there was a real drop in intellect. I mean, I guess it would have been sort of the Tower of Babel situation where all the languages got
Titus.
confused. Because when you are describing something being infertile, but then another group comes along and translate it as like those
Crushed
with
testicles.
balls crushed by rocks. It's like, dude, no, that's very... I mean, maybe you would be infertile if I crushed your balls with a rock, but that's not what... so it's weird the way that we played this game of telephone and got all the way to this strange place where in 2024 you go back to the Hebrew definition of words, and they're not only are they multifaceted, there's multiple definitions for one word, but they're so profound. And then we just translate it as like, broken balls.
Yeah, literally.
geez.
Well, we're trying to relate like you got to understand, like back then when they wrote those terms, people would be like, oh yeah, I get exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But today in our perspective, because we don't see these creatures around anymore, we're like, well, maybe he meant this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so our perspective has evolved along with the terminology that has evolved, you know? And so we don't even know what they actually meant when they were saying certain ones of these things.
They're looking at, like, if you got kicked in the balls, you cannot come in this temple and offer.
Yeah, exactly. How it just gets so distorted. And it was obviously referring to genetics.
This is verse 12 here.
Yeah.
One of themselves, even a prophet of their own, said the Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, slow bellies.
Yeah.
Slow bellies.
Now, but here, we'll keep reading. This witness is true, he says. Wherefore rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in their faith. Okay. Not giving to Jewish fables. Why is it talking about fables and commandments of men that turn from the truth? Okay, why is it talking about Jewish fables in this moment? Now, this is where it comes into dwarfs. Okay, because in the Isle of Crete, okay, where the Cretans were, they're slow bellies, evil beasts. They're saying, okay, he was referring to dwarfs. There was a bunch of dwarf people that lived in the Isle of Crete. Okay. So slow bellies, like, isn't that fascinating? So he's talking about them being slow and then them being a little fat. Okay. But like, yeah. And so they called them that, and then, but also called them evil beasts. Okay. And so, and he says, and liars. And he says, this is true. Titus isn't denying that they are evil beasts. He's not denying that they were slow bellies. He's not denying that these Cretans, where we likely get some of the word creature from, is tethered to the creature word with Cretan. So like this in the Isle of Crete, there's the only dwarf elephant also exists there.
This is actually interesting. Verse 16, they profess that they know God, but in works they deny him, being abominable and disobedient unto every good work, a reprobate. This is what cryptids do. I mean, we talked about on the show previously that Bigfoot that was speaking with a woman telepathically.
The
and
Eliud.
it's like the Eliud. Yeah, he says, he was saying that they're Eliud and that, we know about God and the man Jesus and all that. And then he tries to lead her into like some new age cult. And this is what they always do. It's wild.
Imagine living in a time, though, where you knew, like, oh, that island over there? Yeah, don't go there. It's filled with little people who suck. They're terrible. Don't go there at all.
Well, it's not just that there were little people that sucked. It was like they were Nephilim, guys. Not only did the Nephilim create giants, it also created little people because they breeded with animals and insects and created small races of little beings. Okay, and this is where we get the word fairies and dwarfs and elves from. This concept came from Nephilimization with smaller creatures and smaller things creating tiny little beings. Gnomes, yes. Duendes, whatever you want to call them.
If you go into the Celtic lore and you look at Fey lore, it's very much the same story of the fallen.
Yeah.
And I think that you don't have the body of lore surrounding dwarves and elves and things like that for no reason. There is a tremendous fleshed out realm that supposedly popped up from the imagination of various authors, fictional authors. I would argue that what was the terminology used before, Brian? Channeling? Automatic writing. I would argue that is probably what we're seeing there. I don't think you get that
J.R.
lore.
Tolkien admitted that he was doing that and that he was getting his information from a book, and he's the one that popularized the elf concept and all that stuff.
And if you look at it closely, in video games and movies and shows, they don't really deviate from the lore. The lore is what the lore is. It's pretty well fleshed out. It's a fully realized world. This world of elves and dwarves and fae and such. And I don't think you have all of that and have it be meaningless. I don't think it's meaningless.
No, there's significance to it for sure. But it's I mean, like we just read in the Bible, it talked about ears being stretched, ears too long, and dwarves in the same 2 verses over from one another. Like, why would it be talking about elves and dwarves in one similar section?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's obviously a connection to the hybridization or genetic mutilation or perversion of this. And so like the Cretans were a group of small people that lived in the Isle of Crete. There was a bunch of small things that also lived in the Isle of Crete. Guess what else was in the Isle of Crete? Zeus's birthing place. And this is why it says right afterwards, don't give heed to Jewish fables. because the Jews and the Jewish fables at the time were saying things like, those people are beyond saving. Those little evil beasts, they're not even worth Christianity. Like, even though we're going to Christianity, they're so beyond like savability, even though Jesus said, go into this world and preach to every creature. Every creature. He didn't say to every man, didn't say to every person. He said to every creature. That word retranslated into Hebrew, because it was Greek originally, was nephesh, meaning, it sounds like Nephilim, right? Neph means breath, nephesh. So he was saying, go speak this gospel to every creature. Even the evil creature, the slow-bellied gluttons, were the Cretans, the evil creatures. They were wicked. He said, preach this gospel to them. And so, like, in that area of region, the little dwarf people, have you ever seen, type in Vatican Nile God, and you're going to see a depiction of, actually, again, Zeus, and you can actually type in Zeus with his children afterwards, but this is a very clear depiction of what you think, where dwarfism actually stems from. And so, click the search images. Click the images. This is.
Oh,
yeah, just click on it. Click on the images there.
The wrong page. Boom. There
Okay.
we go.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so this is Zeus with his children, and his children are depicted as little munchkin people, little baby munchkins. Okay, little fat, little chubby munchkins. All right.
Adorable.
Yeah,
But
little tiny.
he's from the island of Crete, so these
Those
could be
are
full
Cretans.
grown.
Those are Cretans. Why do you think you see the cherubs, the little fat angel baby cherubs, bro?
This is why he was eating them, right?
Well, that was the other guy, but yeah,
Kronos.
there's some depiction of Kronos.
Kronos.
Yeah. So like, but look, scroll down. Look. That right there. You see the Sphinx? Why is there a Sphinx next to that? They'll tell you that, oh, it wasn't Zeus or whatever. Yeah, that's a Sphinx sitting there.
Okay,
The
that's like cat feet and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a chimera chilling alongside with the little baby angel people. Okay, this is why the little angels look like little chubby little angel cherubs. Why are they
I
cherubs?
like Top's
Because they're-
thinking though, because Top was like, "Oh, is this why he was eating them?" It's like, why, Top? Because they're small and adorable, and that's indicative of something that should be eaten. It's like, yeah, he was eating them because they were like little chubby little guys, right?
Well, the thing is, like, when you type in like this is these are cherubs, bro. But these were also the Cretans, and the Cretans were saying, we are the children of Zeus. That's why we're small. But his own prophet that they're referring to in the Bible, I forget the prophetic person, he was a poet at the time, who said these little munchkin people are not the children of Zeus. They are liars. These little dwarves aren't Zeus. Zeus is so much more powerful. Ironically, Zeus's children all came out dwarves. So they all came out little dwarf people. And so but there was this argument, because the Isle of Crete was where Zeus, that's right next to Zeus's home and his burial and his whole existence and his birthplace or whatever. And so these people were claiming to be the descendants of Zeus, but they were like little dwarf people, and they were all over the Isle of Crete.
Zeus would be traced back to Baal, who is a fallen angel, right? So he is not a Nephilim, but
It
above
seems
that,
to me
right?
like
He was a
Baal
fallen-
would have. Baal, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
I don't know. You go ahead. Go for it. I don't know.
I was going to say that Baal seems more like a title,
Yeah.
much like Satan the Accuser. But there was an entity that held that title in ancient Sumer called Hadad, which is depicted the same way. It's literally like this dude holding this 3-pronged or technically 6-pronged staff
Yeah,
that.
little fork.
Yeah, it's like
thing on
it
both
looks like a
sides.
fork. Yeah, it's a good way of describing it. So yeah, I would say
Double-sided fork.
for a while I've been conflating the idea of Baal with Zeus, and that's not entirely inaccurate, but the distinction that should be made was Baal was more of a title, more or less saying king, the king of
Yeah.
the
Well,
realm
that's what
or
it means
whatever.
today even.
Yeah.
That's why Balenciaga means king.
Right, but there
know.
was an entity called Hadad that held that title that would have been the exact same thing as Zeus anyway, even described as the king of storms in Sumer. And so it's like, yeah, that's probably the same guy.
Yep. And that so that perpetuation, regardless of his title, his offspring were dwarves. Like, so like
Fascinating.
his offspring were little people, and they claimed to be these little people. They were like, where are the descendants of Zeus? And the normal people are like, why are you so tiny? You can't possibly be the descendants of Zeus. They're like, there's no way. And they're like, yeah, we are. Like, and they're like, no, that's not possible. Zeus is mighty and wonderful and great. And it's like just so fitting that the Lord's like, yeah, and guess what? Your children will be little tiny itty bitty things. Like, you know?
Nerd.
Yeah, and so it's like so funny and comical, but this is what happened historically, and we see it in the biblical context where he's referring to this. And if you read about the history around that thing, there was these Jewish fables going around saying, well, if they're the descendants of Zeus, that's Satan, and there's no way they can be saved. And it was like, that's why he's saying don't pay heed to the Jewish fables. Like, don't pay heed to the Nephilim stories. Don't pay heed to these things, because Jesus said, go preach his gospel to every creature. They're all forgiven. Doesn't matter if you're a dwarf. Doesn't matter if you've got crushed testicles. Doesn't matter if you got anything. You're all forgiven. Like, dwarfism is not, doesn't, in fact, if you have dwarfism, awesome, bro. You're a descendant of fallen angels, bro. Like, that's crazy. Like,
it's funny because dwarfism is often seen as a deformity, but like in a dwarf who doesn't have an actual how would you put this, like something that prevents them from, like a debility, there does a disability, there does seem to be a fully realized version of the dwarf. And what I mean by that is when you see one that seemingly is comfortable in that form, they're very strong, they're very fast, they're very explosive. You often see them in like weightlifting competitions, and they're like incredibly strong. I used to know one in particular who was on the wrestling team when I was in high school, and man, I mean, he did so well, you'd be hard pressed to say the guy had a disability of some sort, that it was a deformity in the truest sense of like having, missing fingers on a hand or something like that. Like, this dude wasn't missing much of anything except for what was going on in the top shelf. Other than that, he was a very formidable wrestler and did incredibly well. So it's like, that's a weird thing to see them excel in any kind of way, shape, or form.
Well, people that have the dwarfism or little people, like, a lot of times actually have like a heightened sense of spirituality. And because of their genetics connected to angels, like literally they're descendants of angels to some degree. And so like you actually, like I have a small person friend that I know, and he's had some like crazy fascinating sort of spiritual encounters. Like he had an experience when he was a child that he actually came up off the ground and floated off the ground. And which is like, what? Like, and he's like I don't know how to explain this to anybody. He's like, I don't even want to talk about it, but I did indeed, like, I floated off of the ground one time when I was a child and flew around my room. Like he like explained the scenario, and he was like, he said it wasn't a dream. He says it was very physical. And he's like, and it happened to me once, and he goes, and I like tried to do it forever afterwards and couldn't do it. He's like, but I was picked up off the ground. And he and like, dude, he also has a really weird thing, because even before he was like, I think he was before he was like a Christian and realized like Jesus is the truth or whatever, like people would walk up to him, like they still do this. They go up to him and break down and just start crying and confessing their sins to him. And he's like, why is this happening to me? And he like came to the psychological understanding that he was like, well, maybe people just see that I'm in a lot of pain and there's a lot of suffering. And then like they see me as like somebody that's been endured a lot of pain. And so they come up to me, trying to convey their pain of their reality. And like something happens in that conflict where they just start confessing their bad stuff that they've done, and he's like, it was just a weird phenomenon that's happened to him throughout his whole life. And he's just like, I don't know. And he said he's like touched a few people that were in pain, and somehow their pain stopped, like physical pain stopped. And he said that's happened also a few times. Now this is
interesting.
And he's like, he didn't understand it. He thought like maybe I absorbed, maybe like the relative pain that I was in somehow like made them realize that their pain wasn't that terrible. And so when I touched them, it was able for their mind to like reset.
He's tried any which way.
Yeah, he was trying to, yeah, exactly. He's trying to like figure out psychologically like why that possibly worked. Right. But he has touched people and healed them. And he's also had people confess things to him. Now, if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, it's like, bro, maybe they're recognizing that your spirit has something closer akin to something angelic.
Right.
And like their spirit is feeling the presence of the Lord somehow coming off of you.
They probably don't understand it, but
they
they're
don't even
being
they don't even
compelled.
understand it. Yeah, exactly. They're being compelled in the situation, right? And so like, you know, it's kind of a really fascinating thing. But I'll tell you right this, that a lot of dwarf people have either had dreams of being abducted. They've been experimented on by scientists or whatever, trying to pull their genetics, okay, or have, you know, had these kind of experiences happen to a lot of dwarf people. And you're like, well, why does that keep happening? Why does that a natural phenomenon with small people, like little people? Why do they have this similar experience? Well, because somebody wants your DNA. Somebody is trying to recreate or pull something genetically superior out of your DNA. Like that's what's going on. And that's why you see, like, hear about the stories of dwarf people from the past that have special abilities, or like leprechauns. They know where the gold is and they've got this magical ability, you know, like and back in the day, little people weren't disproportionate. Like today we've got so much humanity mixed with the little people, and you have this sort of disproportionate sort of deforming kind of thing that's happening. But back in the day, you can look at old photos, we had a lot of little people, a lot of them that were perfectly proportioned but small.
Yes, that's the term that I was looking for before, is proportionate. Like ones that don't have a deformity, they're not out of proportion, they're not out of whack. They look like a fully realized being. Like it doesn't look like a mistake, it looks like just a different type. And it is fascinating that within our lore that we get all these elves and everything. Like we don't really have elves. We do have like thinner people who have like fairer complexions and things like that. But we do have dwarfs. And I just think that that's just so strange, because it's like we're turning them into this fantasy object on the big screen alongside with entities that don't seemingly exist in our realm, like orcs, like gnomes, like fairies, all these different things. But when you turn the TV off, you look over to your dwarf friend and you go, that was crazy, right? And it's like, but he is here. I don't know. Yeah. I just always thought that was strange.
Like how we've ignored them as well. Like dwarfs. I remember when I was younger, dwarf was like a class, like a transgender person, right? Like that's how. Not saying that they were. How do I say this correctly?
Like in a way of like ridicule or
like being this elevated class. Like now the transgender people have this elevated class.
Right, yeah.
Dwarves were kind of like that, where it was kind of off limits if you made fun of a short person. It was kind of like, hey, like chill. Now you don't really hear much about them. Like they're just
the Overton window of I guess almost like the oppression Olympics has shifted in such a way that dwarves no longer make the cut. I suppose you used to have to feel bad for them. Now there's other people that you're supposed to feel bad for. We're at the 2-hour mark, and I want to get one last question in before we wrap this up or bring it in for a landing.
We gotta talk about Esau though.
Fuck. Okay, all right. Well, there's Esau, but I was about to go to the Saint Christopher, and whether or not this idea that sometimes he's depicted as a dog-headed man, but then once again, theologians and biblical scholars will say, well, this is just a euphemism to describe, I don't know what a dog thing, just the loyalty, maybe. I don't know. And so in the face of conventional explanations, what we're exploring right now contest that. And I think that maybe then there is room, if there are lion-faced men of Moab, then maybe there are, in fact, dog-headed entities. And certainly talking about ancient Egypt and Anubis, the jackal-headed god, this seems to play right into things. And once again, we're talking about whether or not these creatures can be saved, which is what Jesus says to do, right? Is to
preach every creature. Yep.
Right. And you have Saint Christopher, who has given his life to Christ. So that is a very interesting one to me.
You know, I almost feel like if we're going to cut it, I feel like we should even save this for another episode, because to be completely honest, this subject, I could just give you right now, but you know what? Right now, type in suits of armor. Type in helmet, old helmet, suit of armor. Type in that in.
Oh yeah, we did this last time. Yeah.
Did we talk about
this is the one that has like space for a muzzle. So last time we did touch on Saint Christopher, but we haven't gone into it. So why don't we do this?
Okay, wait. Okay,
go ahead.
Hold on, I gotta at least get this part out. Okay, because we talk about the little people,
Yeah, that's a very strange thing. It doesn't make any sense.
Yes. And we talked about the little people, and we talk about, okay, so like, why does the little people have red hair? Okay, and like the leprechauns, right? And then we can talk about Esau, where it says red and hairy. Well, did you know in the other translations it doesn't just say Esau was red and hairy? It says Esau was a fawn.
A fawn. Like a fawn is like a deer, is it not?
Like a goat man.
A goat man, like a satyr.
Yes, that's what it says, and it actually says satyr. It says satyr is what it says in the translation. So and so it says, God loved Esau, or it says God loved Jacob, but he hated Esau, and that's kind of a harsh word to be like. Well, God,
for Esau,
why did God hate Esau? Well, because Esau wasn't fully human. He wasn't. He was, and like, you got to understand, like, how not human was he that his brother could put on the skin of a goat and deceive his dad?
Right.
He's clearly some level of not human that a goat skin can deceive his own dad of who he actually is. Like, come on. Like, that should tell you right there, dude ain't normal. Dude's not something genetically normal.
You know what's interesting?
And Esau means red and hairy. So
on the topic of Esau, it makes me wonder, because Nimrod was described as a Gibberine, right? Which almost
what did Joe Biden mean by that? This is
dog-faced pony soldier.
Honestly,
I don't know what the hell he meant by that, but maybe
talking
he was
Nephilim, bro.
He was cued in. Esau in these extra canonical texts seemingly slayed Nimrod in the field.
Yeah, in the book of Jasher. Yeah.
Yes, and if that is true, and Nimrod was in fact a Gibberim, it seems to insinuate that Nimrod was a man who became something like a Nephilim if there was a genetic intervention that happened and changed him. And that just makes me wonder, like, you have this precedent for the Eliud looking for redemption, right? This comes from the story of a woman who was interacting with a Bigfoot for some time, who eventually divulged to her that it was an Eliud and it was seeking redemption. And if there are Bigfoot entities that are seeking redemption, and we have one in the form of Esau, who may have been a Bigfoot or a satyr or something like that, killing Nimrod, maybe then, dude, maybe at the end, when the Nephilim show themselves again, maybe then the Bigfoot will come out of hiding. And I imagine some of them are assholes, but some of them might be seeking redemption and might help us, I don't know, decapitate a bunch of Nephilim. I'm just holding out hope for that. Is that a wild thing to hope for? That's what I want.
It actually says in the end, it says that the Lord's mighty men will return. It says the Lord's mighty men will return, cursing. It says and says, oh gosh, doing his work, destroying while insulting. That's what it says.
Dang.
Destroying while insulting. And you're like, what do you mean God's like mighty men will come to do his work insulting while destroying? So it sounds like they're like,
man.
Yeah, it sounds like they're like, yeah, that sounds like Nephilim like destroying all the wickedness in the earth. Like, they basically show up and are like, yo, if you're evil, now it's our turn to like wipe you out. It's kind of, there's a verse that kind of talks about them like returning to some degree, and there's a suggestion to that. No, wait, I don't know. Do we have to stop, or can I tell you?
We don't have to. What do you have for time, Top?
I got some time.
Okay, because I got to tell you, there's a theme here that we got to go down this pull, and then we can go with the dog direction if we have time still. But the dog direction thing, like those are Canaanites. Okay, clearly those are Canaanites. That's where we get the word Canite, that became night, which became knight in shining armor, and that's why you see the knights in shining armor, and the Nephilim taught men metallurgy, and that's why the armor suits were very intricate back in the day, and they had like all kinds of uniqueness because they were learning from a form of technology taught to them by fallen angels. Okay, and so they are descendants, whole nother subject we can go down. But first, let's stick with the hairy men thing, because this is where it gets really fascinating when we talk about Esau and the Bigfoot and the connection to Bigfoot and the other cryptids, okay? Because we got to bring it all circle back around to cryptids.
Right.
And, we know we went into like dwarfism and all kinds of stuff, but like, so when it comes to the hairy men, right? So the hairy men, like what Esau was, and in the book of Jasher, there's another type of creature that's listed, okay? And these creatures are called the Yamim, okay? And in the Muslim culture, they believe that all the Nephilim, or all the jinn, originated from the country of Yemen. Isn't that fascinating?
That is.
They believe that the jinn demons that we call demons today originated from the country of Yemen. By the way, that guy, Ali Antar, he's from Yemen. That dude with 2 horns. So they believe, because there's a lot of unique genetic like deformities that happened with the people in Yemen. Okay, so they believe that these people in Yemen are some descendant of something demonic or something akin to jinn, right? Genies, which are demons. But in that story, there is the story of the Yamim. Okay, and the Yamim are a type of creature that it says in the book of Yasher. It says that the Ana who is guarding the donkeys, it says a whirlwind came across the ocean, I believe it is, and out of the whirlwind came creatures that from the middle up are like the children of men, or no, sorry, from the middle down they're like the children of men, and from the middle up they are like bears or kifas. Okay? Kifa doesn't have a good word translation. We don't even know what kind of creature that is. It says bears or kifas. Okay? This is the origin of Bigfoot. I'm going to tell you right now, the closest word we got for an animal that's a kifa is a kof, and it means monkey. So what do you get when you mix a man, a gorilla, or a monkey, and a bear? What do you get?
Yeah, you get a Bigfoot.
A gorilla.
You get a man
Or a
pig.
Bigfoot.
Imagine living in Yemen and a whirlwind shows up full of Bigfoots. Full of Bigfoots, dude. Just looking at it. Is that a storm? Is that a storm coming our way? It looks like a storm. Next thing you know, it pulls up and just starts spitting Bigfoot all over your leg. Oh, my God, dude. Horrifying.
But think about this. So it's a bear, a monkey, and a man. It creates. So what do you think gorillas are? You know that gorillas were only discovered 200 years ago. Do you know that? Like we
didn't know that.
Yeah, we didn't know gorillas existed. Before that, they said they were a race of angry men. Whoa. So what are gorillas? Gorillas are de-evolved Nephilim hybrids. I'm telling you right now, gorillas are in Nephilim that have de-evolved back into the state of animalistic nature.
Interesting.
So like
and
how
thank God.
You're saying how we have evolved more towards human. They are evolving more towards,
no,
or
they
at least their
de-evolved.
genetic code is. Yeah.
They're animalistic de-evolved from us. They de-evolved back into an animalistic state. But that is what a Bigfoot is. A Bigfoot is something that, if the Bigfoot it's basically a Bigfoot with Down syndrome is what a gorilla is. Okay? That's the basically, like, you know, so like at a certain point, like I'm straight up telling you, like it's pretty true. Like
I'm thinking of a t-shirt already.
You're thinking,
there was a moment where we had Dustin Nemos on the show, and Dustin Nemos has his opinions, and I hope to God he's wrong about them. I just don't have the ability to push back. I lack the information. But he says that demons are dead Jews, which is like, good God, please, no. What? I hope that's not true.
No, it's not.
But when he said that, it was such a kind of hilarious moment. And I just love that on this show, every once in a while, we get that. It's like, demons are dead Jews. Or gorillas, Bigfoot are gorillas with Down syndrome. Is that...
Gorillas are Bigfoots with Down syndrome.
I respect Dustin saying that. And when he went on that show, he went on Donut Show, and he was debating a Jewish guy about this.
It's incredible, yeah.
It was funny. He was like, "So you're saying that you think that I'm a demon?" He's like, "Well, you're certainly not human." And everyone goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe he said that." And then literally 3 minutes later, the guy goes, "Well, you know, it's just that Jews have 2 souls and you guys just have 1. So it's not like we're better than you, but it's like we've got more gas in the tank." And I was like, incredible.
Incredible.
It's incredible that they're allowed to get away with saying that. But he's just like, "I don't think you're human." And it's like, oh, this guy has to be canceled from everything. Like, it's in their holy books that they're saying that they're super whatever.
I
just find
love
it
I love
hilarious.
Dustin Nemos, but every time he gets into a debate, I'm like, please, for the love of God, somebody have information to push back against what this guy's saying. Because I'm not mad at Dustin for believing in what he believes in, and especially when he's got like the scripture and I don't have the ability to push back because I'm an idiot. But I'm always rooting. Like I consider Dustin Nemos a friend, and I'm always looking to the other person, like, please pull something out of your pocket that's going to dispel this. Debunk him, please, for the love of God. But it hasn't happened yet.
You can bring me this thing with that guy. I can give him the evidence that will.
Oh,
that will
shit,
knock him
that would
out.
be a bang.
I can tell him
Unbelievable.
exactly what would
Dustin
knock that
Nemos
out.
is a good guy, but he just has stumbled upon this thing, and this is what he believes is correct.
He's very intense.
He's very
dude.
intense. Yeah, he's very intense.
Yeah.
I love him. He's funny too.
But yeah,
you know.
there's so much more connected to that because he probably thinks the word Gentile. He thinks it means non-Jew.
I honestly couldn't tell you what
I'm
he
gonna tell you
thinks
right
because
now,
every
this is
time
my
I
next
talk to him, it's a
documentary.
fever dream.
Okay, well, I'm gonna tell you right now. My next documentary is talking about this, guys. I'm gonna give you guys an exclusive. Don't be promoting this line everywhere. But I'm gonna tell you right now. The word Gentile means giantile. It means descendant of giants. It doesn't mean non-Jew. It means non-human.
He thinks that the bloodline of the Nephilim has been so watered down that Jews are the descendants of giants. It's a whole thing. It's a whole.
Yeah.
opposite of you.
That's exactly the wrong thing. We are all descendants of giants. It says until the fullness of the Gentile age. Remember, it says the fullness of the Gentile age. It's giantile. You're the expression gentle giant. It's not gentle giant. It's gentile giant. It's not gentle giant.
Honestly, if
Gentile
that's
giant.
true, then because Dustin Nemos basically says that Jesus Christ died for the sins of man, but Nephilim are not man, and thereby cannot be saved through
Yeah, he's
Jesus
wrong.
Christ. And if
Jesus
we
said,
have
"Preach this
Nephilim DNA in
gospel."
us,
Yeah, he said preach this gospel to every creature, every nephesh, every Nephilim. Okay, and that's what the Crusades were about. They went around hunting down. Like if you read about St. Patrick chased the snakes out of Ireland. Okay, what were the snakes? They're the descendants. They were the dwarfs, bro. St. Patrick chased the dwarfs. They're the descendants of the Nephilim. And like you read about all over the place. Like the Crusades were the Christians getting it wrong and realizing like, oh, we need to kill these Jewish fable creatures. When in reality they were supposed to like give them grace and give them the message of Christ. But they were over here trying to like destroy them. That's why they were hunting down monsters. Like that's what the
Interesting.
Crusades were all about. Like this is literally what this comes from. Like even Vlad the Impaler, who was hunting down people with long teeth, okay, who is where we get the determination of who Dracula is.
right?
That's why Dracula fights werewolves, because he was hunting down dog-headed people and killing them. He wasn't supposed to be. He was,
I was gonna
supposed
say
to be.
based.
Yes. Yeah, right.
That's
and
interesting.
so like the thing is, like he wasn't supposed to be doing that. He was supposed to be preaching the gospel. But he became the person hunting down people. Why do you think your teeth are called canine teeth, bro? Because they're Canaanites. Because you have Canaanite blood in you. Every human that has canine teeth in your mouth, you are part Nephilim. You have genetic Nephilim stuff in your blood.
Do Jews have canine teeth?
Nope. Old Jews that Hitler was killing don't have canine teeth.
Do the
Look at
Jews that are in Israel right now have canine
Yes,
teeth?
they're all the same as us. Everyone's the same.
Who are the Jews? Who
They're
are
the same as
Jews?
us. They're the same
Yeah,
as us.
Is it just been so watered down? In other words, the genetic.
Genetics at this point, we're all Nephilimized at this point. Everyone is.
Damn. So we better hope there's salvation for the Nephilim.
Yeah, you're all Nephilimized. If you got canine
Yeah,
teeth
dog,
in
I'm
your
Puerto
mouth, you're a
Rican.
Canaanite.
That's like half dog.
That's
Bro,
worse
dude,
than Nephilim.
Bro, what is it called? Like, no. Look at this. It's called Spanish, right? Pan-ish. Pan.
Yeah, pan.
Pan-ish.
That little
means
asshole.
like pan. Okay? Hispanic. Pan-ic means people. Pan. It means people of Pan. Who's Pan? The goat god.
Yeah.
Like it's all of your culture.
Honestly, sitting here now looking at Top, if his ears were pointed, he would look very much like a satyr. 100% like a
Bro,
satyr.
actually, I'll tell you, I'll even get even further. Like there's dudes that are super hairy from their waist down and have no hair on their chest up.
Dog. I have a little
Do you
bit
know
of chest
someone
hair.
like that?
Me. My
You.
whole
Yeah,
like
that's
my
what I
body
thought.
from my legs down, very hairy.
I
Like,
was
very
gonna,
hairy.
and here's the funny part. I'm gonna tell you right now.
not much up here. It's weird.
I'm
One
gonna
day
tell
I was
wait.
hanging out over Top's house and he came downstairs. He had no pants on. It took me 5 minutes to realize he had no pants on. I thought he was just
Okay.
wearing weird looking pants.
Okay, wait a second. I find this very funny because I know we had a friend that was like that growing up, and we'd always make fun of him because he'd like have no chest hair but be fully hairy on the legs down. And so like I recognized there's a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Those people are pan-ish.
Yeah.
You are Spanish. You have Pan-ish. You're Hispanic. You are like Pan because your descendants are from the goat god Pan, bro. Like, and it doesn't matter. Like, you're still forgiven. Like, so it is irrelevant.
Some goats out here. I gotta get some. You
You
change.
can start communicating with
I
them.
was this close to getting a cow, and I'm like, nah. Now goats for sure. Goats.
Goats seem like less
Goats-
work. I wouldn't do
Well,
it.
you could probably process goat milk better too. Probably, who knows, man?
Unbelievable.
Like you probably it'd probably be better for you. But the reality is this: like we all have genetic hybridization going in with us, within our blood.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's
And so,
the
like,
idea, right? As in the days of Noah. This is what was happening during the time of Noah. So this is
Shit
what's
was all
happening
messed
now.
up. Yeah.
It's
it was-
but it's so diluted at this point. Like they are mostly Gentile. This is the age of the Gentiles. But yeah, I think it's so fat. People don't recognize it. There's also people that have the reverse as you, bro. There's people that are super hairy from the chest up and zero hair from their waist down. Okay, and so there's people that have both sort of anomalous hair positionings. Okay, and so like it's very normal. Sorry if I'm breaking your mind and you're realizing you might be slightly Nephilimized.
He knew
But-
there was something wrong, but
Okay,
he
like,
didn't know
this
to what
is-
extent.
Bro, this is the area I study this stuff and deal with this genetics thing all the time. I've researched it so thoroughly, and it all makes sense when you understand what was going on and what they were doing. So like people were hunting down people, the dog-headed people they were hunting down and trying to kill them. Like, bro, type in the dog-headed people right now. Type in werewolf syndrome right now. Werewolf syndrome. Yeah, like, bro, this is the dog-headed people. This is
That's
the
another one of
later
those-
form of this.
Werewolf syndrome is one of those when I see it, when it's seemingly like done entirely to their face, I go, that doesn't feel like a deformity as much as it feels like a different species. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like when I think of deformity, I certainly don't think of symmetry. Let's put it that way. And a lot of these people, you know, there's a symmetry aspect to the face hair that
Or a
is like,
selective part where it's just on this one part, like the little girl right there to the top left, like it's just on her
Yes.
head mostly. And so that's and the below that one, like the genetics makeup of these people's faces are different. But guess what? Here's the deal: they can speak, so they can prophesy, which means they are mostly human. So that's it. So this is genetic remnants. They're no longer Nephilimized.
so if they can't speak, we throw them into a volcano.
No, if they can't speak, they need to be witnessed to. But here's the deal: like it doesn't make a difference. But like because they can speak, they are human. They are mostly human. It doesn't matter what their genetic sequence is. If you can speak, God has given you the ability to prophesy. So you're at the level of where the threshold has been drawn. Okay, if you can't speak, then that's the line where the threshold, you know, I think sort of cuts in a sense. This is this would be such a I wish I had seen this this interview, by the way, so long ago, because it has taken me years to figure this stuff out. This is great. I love talking about this stuff.
One of the things that I really love that we can take away from this episode, though, is this idea that these entities that we perceive as incredibly powerful, the ones that can't speak and only do so telepathically, it's actually a weakness. And that is, I think, it's sort of, it's heartening. You know what I mean? Like, because when people have these experiences, they come away feeling hopeless and helpless and full of fear. And the thing that you perceived as like a superpower, this telepathic communication, is actually indicative of weakness. And I think that's a great way to kind of turn the corner on that and realize that there is power in the name of Jesus Christ, and that these things are not the horrifying monsters. I mean, certainly, definitionally speaking, they are the horrifying monsters of old, but they don't have the power. Helen Keller was here. They don't have the
She was
power
also Satanist.
that you perceive. You know, they want you to believe they have power, but they don't.
Yeah, they don't. They don't.
Incredible.
They can't even prophesy. So, man, fun subject.
Unbelievable.
We're gonna have to do it. You're gonna have to bring me on, and we'll talk about dog-headed people. and
We're gonna
some
bring
other
you on
stuff.
again because every time you come on, it's an incredible amount of fun. And I like when these topics can be. There's something to be said about when you're getting information and you're learning, and everybody's kind of sitting there and listening. And there's another thing to be said when that topic is still potent but is fun, and that's very much what happened here, and it's what happened last time. It's always a fun hang, Brian. It really is, and I think this was a great episode. So Top, if you don't have anything, I don't think is there anything left to...
One more time, tell the people again, because
Yes.
they're retarded, so tell them at the end where they can find you and what you do.
Demon Erasers. Demon Erasers on social media. Add me on Instagram. Go to my website, Demon Erasers. Instagram. I'm on X. I'm also on TikTok. And so, yeah. Check it out. And YouTube. Yep, YouTube.
There it
Demon
is,
Erasers.
Obama's birth certificate.
Oh yeah. We could do a whole episode on political stuff next.
Awesome. We're
Nice.
definitely going to bring you back, man. We have to do this again.
Absolutely. All right, cool. Super
Yes.
fun.
And also, again, for the people, I know that the people here are already members, but if you're not, go to where we go, share this tab, boom, patreon.com. Go ahead, join, become a member, so you can watch this while it happens and interact with the guests live, interact with us live. It's a lot of fun. But this is how we've got to do it for now. So
yes, you
go
can
there,
be
check that
part
out.
of the live chat who all say horrifying things in a very distracting manner as we're doing the show. Patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. All right, guys. Bryan, thank you for your time. And keep an eye out, guys. I think we're back next week. I don't know who we got. You'll see us again. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we'll be back. See you
We'll be
later.
back.
Bye.
Peace out.
Later.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real. If you can persuade people that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see, you got them. Because they'll laugh in the face of an explanation that portrays the bigger picture of what's happening. And they have.